Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 325 of the news, and it's good to see you all in the chat once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and today we have some pretty interesting news to cover about the Battle of Bakhmut. And while the Russians did take the city of Soledar, there is a small amount of fighting as the Ukrainian forces continue to withdraw from the remainder of the town that has been loosely held by the Ukrainians over the past 24 hours, and they're creating a new defensive line in the Krasna Hora and Bakhmut area. But before we get into that tonight, of course, there are a few bits of news internationally, really just one, that I would like to cover before we get into the massive breakdown of what's happening in Soledar and how the Ukrainians are making sure that while the Russians paid heavily to take the town over the course of 4 months of heavy fighting, they are now paying tenfold what they were paying in normal battles due to the amount of artillery barrages and drone strikes that have occurred over the past 24 hours, with the Russians becoming very relaxed in the town, I guess, in the celebrations of capturing it. But with that, we're going to be moving on into the area of Lithuania and Latvia and the border in between the two, as we saw today that a major pipeline between the two countries exploded. This pipeline is the Amber Grid pipeline connecting Lithuania with Latvia and Estonia. And so if you look on the map, this is Lithuania and this is Latvia and Estonia. So the pipeline is somewhere around this area. It caught on fire and exploded, and as we know, the gas is still burning, although much less than it was when this was posted, and we're hoping, although we haven't gotten any additional news, that this fire has subsided and there is no larger issue here. We're not really sure if this falls into the category of sabotage, but it is an unfortunate event, as it is a gas line. And gas lines are usually associated directly with the Russian Federation. So we don't know if that's some kind of a message that they're trying to send through sabotage, or if it's just an unfortunate incident. But this has not happened all too often, so we're kind of leaning more towards the direction of sabotage, but there's no real clear answer. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of international news, and believe it or not, around the rest of the world, there is absolutely nothing. Oh, holy moly. Thank you, Duncan. Thank you, Duncan. You are a legend. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from the international news, and we're now going to be moving into our location unknowns, where we have some pretty interesting stuff to cover. Starting up with our first clip of a Russian tank, or a vehicle. We couldn't really tell what kind it was, but it was being hit with an Excalibur. Also, interesting music.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I gotta mute. We can see the vehicle right here. It looks like... Now that I see it, I'm trying to make out its shape the best I can. It is kind of some kind of a T-Series main battle tank, but it kind of looks like it may be an SPG. It's just that the pixels are so bad that it's really hard to tell what it is. But we can see right there, the tank sitting still. It got hit by the Excalibur, and it's going up in flames. That tank has been completely destroyed. And there we go. We got the replay 3 times over just to make sure. 3rd time is the charm. I believe, Matty, that the Russian tankers, while their heaters are not working inside the vehicles, the Ukrainians are trying to find some kind of way to keep them warm in these cold winter months.
Yeah, the Ukrainians are master heater technicians. They get them working every time.
Oh, man. I gotta say. And that looks like it is pretty warm. With that, we're going to be moving on to our next bit of Location Unknown news, where we can see some fake blood stuff. Now, this is titled this way because y'all aren't going to believe it, but the Kadyrovites actually filmed themselves in the process of making a propaganda flick, and they were lathering fake blood onto their clothes. Now, I don't really know why they were doing that, but they were in this clip, and you can see this right here. So here it is. Also, we're going to mute the music, but you see them here with the blood packet going to the pant leg, spraying on the fake blood, and then rubbing it around. I guess to try and make it look like he's taken some kind of a leg wound or something? I don't really know what the purpose of this was. Like, I have no idea.
That was probably their ketchup. Like, they probably needed that.
It's probably strawberry jam. I mean, they're like, oh, bled, we just missed out on that delicious strawberry jam, bled. We could have put vodka in and they had delicious snack. I don't really know what the hell the point of this was, but it's still interesting to see that they did something like this. And I have no idea why. But if that doesn't show you that they're faking their stories, I don't know what does. With that, we're now going to be moving on to the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we also saw an interesting video that was just titled, Slava Ukraini. And of course, as you all know, President Zelenskyy's favorite line is Slava Ukraini. And so with that, let's check out this clip. Now, I'm going to say this real quick. Both of our last streams have gotten content ID'd for one thing or another. And I don't know if this music is content ID'd, but I feel like we kind of lose the entire purpose of this clip if it's if there is no music. So we're going to play the music, and if we get a content ID and you're watching this later on and you're wondering why are there ads running on the stream, it is probably because it's been content ID'd. So here's the clip.
Горить метал, працюють хлопці наші. Ти не базарь, москаль тут, бо змішають в кашу. Прийшов зі злом, будеш кульгавий. Отримай справедливість і передай це мамі. Мама, нас розбили.
Хто, синок?
Збройні сили України.
This is actually some really good animating. Oh, well, editing, really. They're in a raid.
Незламна сила, незламний дух. Якщо ти проти нас, ти нам уже не друг. Прийшов зі злом, зробим орігамі. Отримуй справедливість і передай це мамі. Мама, нас розбили.
Хто, синок?
Збройні сили України.
I recognize some of this footage. This is from Story Blocks.
One of them was, I could tell. But I had to show that to y'all because it was really good editing and a pretty good clip. So I just had to show it to y'all because I liked it. So with that, we're going to be moving on to the next bit of Location Unknown news, but once again, slow Ukraine. And we're now going to be moving on into our fourth clip of Location Unknown news, where we can see a little drone that can fly purportedly a distance. And now this is confusing me a whole lot more. This is a small picture of a part of this drone, and the Ukrainian, what I've been told is a trident, is now a part of an eagle symbol, which is now confusing me again, because I originally started off this war thinking that that was some kind of an interesting eagle symbol. And now it is being used as an eagle symbol. But I've been told by many people it's a trident. So I have no idea what this thing is now. Again, I've been totally confused. And the official answer is a trident. It appears that a lot of people think it's an eagle. I still kind of think it looks like an eagle. It has the wings here, it has the tail, it has the head. But supposedly, this little strike drone that this is painted onto has a range of 1,000 kilometers, and it has already been tested. We don't really know a lot of information in detail about this vehicle, about anything beyond its range and its capabilities, but it is really interesting here that apparently the Ukrainians have developed a long-range drone that could stand in for the bomber force that the Ukrainians do not really have, or possess the ability to expend if they do have it. The closest thing they have to a bomber force, if you want to compare their air force to the Russian air force, are Su-24s. Both the Russians and the Ukrainians have the Su-24 right here, which is something of a, I guess you could say, frontline bomber, if you want to call it that. More like a attack aircraft, more so. This is the closest thing that the Ukrainians have to an actual bomber. The Russians, on the other hand, are not short of bombers at all to fire off cruise missiles from. They have the Tu-95 Bear, which is one of their most common bombers. They also have the let me try and think. The what is the name of the one? The Tu-161, I think, or the Tu-160, which is, I guess you could say, their very similar version to the B-1 Lancer. And then lastly, they have the Tu-22M3 backfire right here. These are the I guess you could say the main three bombers that the Russians have that I guess you could say fill that strategic bomber role and have the range to do what this drone supposedly can do. And so the Ukrainians, of course not having bombers, look like they're trying to make a drone that can fly about practically as much as needed for the range and drop ordnance. We don't know what kind of ordnance, again, but a very interesting concept and also some pretty cool art they're putting on these things. With that, we're now moving on to the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we can also see that the Germans have sent some tanks into Ukraine. It's just not the Leopard tanks. They sent the mine-clearing tanks. These things are still greatly needed by the Ukrainians, and we see them right here. I don't really know what these things are called, but it looks like they're based off of a Leopard 1 hull with a mine-clearing device attached to the front of it. And we can see the pictures of it here. I believe these pictures were taken inside of Germany. It still has the German cross on it for the here. So I'm not really sure if these are pictures from Ukraine. But purportedly, the Germans have delivered these, and they are inside of Ukraine. And so we'll be waiting on some video or picture evidence to see how well these things truly perform. But it is good to know that the Germans are going to be helping out the Ukrainians in their mine-clearing efforts behind the lines, because mines have been an incredible danger to the public in the areas that the Ukrainians liberated, and has ended up getting a decent amount of people even after the Russians have long left. And so it's good to know they'll be finally able to clear these places out. With that, we're going to be moving on into our next bit of Location Unknown News. This one is fairly interesting because we're going to be going over the Russian losses. So starting off today, we have a pretty high number. 740 troops killed. An incredibly high number. We're getting very close up to 1,000. And the reason why the Russians have taken these kinds of losses today and killed alone is because the Ukrainians have practically turned Soledar, like we were asking and questioning last night. And remember, Matthew, you asked this question, and it actually turns out you were right in your opinion. Were the Ukrainians going to level Soledar? It appears that right now they are currently in the process of doing that. Actually, it's really a mix of you and me, because they are bombarding that city to hell and back, but they're doing it in a precise way. They're hitting on Russians exactly where they are in the town, but they are not holding anything back. They are unloading every single piece of 155mm ammunition they have. They're dropping every drone bomblet they have. They're doing anything and everything they can, and we can see that the kills are definitely being accounted for here. They have killed hundreds of Russians just over the past 24 hours, most likely in Soledar alone. Not only that, but go ahead.
That's definitely smart, but have the Russians flooded in completely into Soledar, or have just like the beginning units gone into Soledar itself from Russia?
From what we know, they flooded in. And to go over the frontline analysis here real quick on the Soledar area, we can see here that they have taken the entire town, and from what we know, the two units on the outskirts of Soledar that had created the bowl earlier on, when we go back to here, let me go back one more, right here, and you can see the little bowl. They created the bowl, and we assume that the Wagner unit was the one conducting the operations on both flanks of Soledar village. Once they were able to complete that, the units converged in the center, I guess you could say pinching off this part of the village from the Ukrainians as they withdrew and finally claiming it. So there are a decent amount of Russians inside of Soledar, and they are moving up through the town itself directly from what we've been able to tell off of video and picture evidence. So the answer to that question is yes.
Well, that's a good thing, because that was my idea last night, along with several other people. And I've got to say that you did bring up a point last night about the civilians. Do we know how many civilians are left in Soledar, or have they made secondary attempts to get other people out?
From what we've been able to hear, we've heard several contradicting things. We've heard that there may be as little as 100 people left in Soledar. There may only be 50, and then another very clear statement, there is no one there. Every civilian's been evacuated. We don't really know. And that's a bit of an issue, because if there are people still inside of that town, then that means it's not necessarily safe to start bombarding the entire thing. However, once again, the Ukrainians are using drones to locate the Russian forces where they are and then start precisely striking them, although with the rate at which they're hitting them, it looks like they're trying to level the entire town. So we don't really, and you see right here in the live chat, we actually have two different numbers right here. There's 500 people, 300 people, 450. Nobody really knows. And also, what were you going about, Matthew? Hello? Let's see. It looks like we're connected. So let me.
Are you still there?
Yes, I am. Are you still here?
Uh-oh.
Testing. Hello? Hello? Hello?
I cannot hear you at all if you can hear me right now.
I don't know why that would be the case, because Discord's working fine. Let me check my settings real quick and go to voice and video, and it should be working just fine. My microphone is picking it up.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Something went dead for a minute, but I got you back.
All right. So, anyways, getting back to answering that question, they're hitting them precisely, but they're hitting them so much it appears that they're obliterating the entire town as it is right now. So, do you have any other questions? Because I really forgot where I was going with the whole troop thing there.
No other questions except, well, I'll save that one for a poll. I'll save it for a poll, but I think you covered it.
All right. So, moving on from the troop losses, we also saw that the Russians lost another 8 armored personnel carriers today, another 7 supply trucks, 4 tanks, 4 artillery pieces, and 1 aircraft. From what we've been able to hear, the aircraft was an Su-25 shot down somewhere in the Donetsk area near Makivka, but we have not been able to confirm that with picture or video evidence. All we have is the casualty report to say that the aircraft was shot down. But moving on from that, the losses once again in the infantry department are incredibly high. The Russians are losing 740 troops per day on somewhat of an average right now. At the lowest, they're losing about 500 a day. In between their highest and their lowest, they are still hundreds over the average that the United States and the United Kingdom will lose per day on average in the entirety of the Second World War. So it's definitely not panning out to be a good thing for them, and these kinds of losses are, I guess you could say, really untenable in terms of keeping that up. But of course, somehow, the Russians some way are keeping this up. We don't really understand how, though. But the tank losses, decent. The APC losses, fairly good. It's not the 20s that we used to see, but it's still fairly decent. And the supply trucks, of course, being one of the most important things to destroy on the battlefield. We saw that 7 more supply trucks, probably with tons of supplies on each of them, were destroyed, and those supplies will not make it to their frontline troops. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from the casualty report and on into our last bit of Location Unknown news, where we saw nighttime in Ukraine. And this may look a lot like nighttime in Detroit. I gotta mute that, but you can see right here, it's looking a lot like the suburbs of Detroit. This must be near the old Packard factory. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And good to know that the Ukrainians are still keeping up nighttime operations, and it looks like they have some MVDs to work with. And we've known that for a good while. The Ukrainians have had MVDs while the Russians largely don't, which has limited the Russians heavily in their offensive actions, because while they can try and assault at night, they can hardly see at night because of the lack of MVDs. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians, by and large, have a larger number of MVDs per soldiers, and so they're able to see the enemy, the Russians, more effectively and take them out during nighttime operations. That's also why you'll see that the Russians engage the Ukrainians most of the time during the daylight or the dawn and dusk hours. But moving on from that last clip, good to know that the nightlife in Ukraine is still keeping pretty up to date and up to speed. And with that, we're now moving out of our location unknowns and on into Kharkiv, because we saw something interesting today as the boat back to Kharkiv had something on it. And I wanted to show you all this because, once again, this is something to always remember about, I guess you could say, the war and what's going on there. The Russians lost 740 soldiers killed today, but the Ukrainians are always losing soldiers as well, to a smaller degree than the Russians, but still losing them nonetheless. And on that boat that we watched on Radio Free Europe the other day that was transporting citizens to and from Kharkiv, we saw that today a casket was put on that boat with a dead Ukrainian soldier inside as they transport him back across the river and back to his home village to bury him there, along with the cross that will be over his grave. It's a little sad to think about, but of course, this is the cost of war, and this is the cost of freedom for the Ukrainians. It will require that soldiers, unfortunately, most likely in about 100 to 160 per day, end up getting killed by the Russians, so that way they can hold the territory that they currently have, and hopefully, in the future, like they did in the Kharkiv and Kherson area, recapture ground in massive swaths and lightning attacks. But, of course, it's always unfortunate to see images like this. And it's also sad to know that they had to ferry him across this river with the bridge completely destroyed. But I always wanted to make sure that we point out that while we always celebrate a lot of the living, brave Ukrainian soldiers on this channel, there are a lot of Ukrainian soldiers that have, of course, died from their wounds, but they deserve all of the praise as well for helping to keep their country, I guess you could say, secure and safe against the Russian invasion. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from this little clip in Kharkiv, but you know, once again, really honestly, it's really sad when you think about it, because I don't know if this is the family, members of the family that are taking it across, but they're going to have to pretty much take this guy back all the way by foot because cars really can't travel anywhere, and there's really no, from what we know, gas or oil supply to that area to keep cars running. They have to transport this coffin all the way to its burial site by hand, and this entire situation was caused by the Russians. Their lack of a bridge, their lack of gas, the lack of one of their loved ones. It's all due to the Russians in the war right now. And so with that, we're now moving on from this little sobering picture and on into the next bit of news outside of the Kharkiv area. And we're now starting to move on into generally the Kherson area. We're about to get Kreminna here in a second. And let me double check again, because interestingly enough, I feel like there was some Russian news today. And I think there was, and I'm going to have to pull this up real quick, because if my eyes didn't deceive me earlier, I swear I saw something that was really interesting about Putin. So let me pull that up real quick. Let's see. Huh. I was right. You wouldn't believe this, Matthew. I don't think anyone else is going to believe this.
There's another fire in Russia?
No. Putin has said the war has gone on too long.
That's nothing new. Like, this war's been going on for, let's see, it was supposed to last 3 days, and now it's what, day 325? Where's he been?
One second, I'm gonna have to change the title, because I remember that was the thing. I was like, wait a minute, did that really happen? And it did. Now, of course, I always have a disdain for mainstream news, but considering that everyone on Earth, whether you call them reputable or not reputable on both directions, they're all reporting on this. It appears that Putin, just about a day ago at the oldest, and about 6 hours ago at the latest, berated the Russian military on a video call, saying that they were fooling around. Now, we're going to use one of these articles. We'll pick The Guardian, since that's the one at the very top. And let's read what they had to say about the situation. Vladimir Putin has publicly scolded a senior minister and ally during a meeting broadcast on state television as sanctions from the stalling war in Ukraine cause fresh economic headaches for the president. Speaking during a live video call with officials on Wednesday, the Russian leader appeared agitated and berated Deputy Prime Minister Denis Menturov, who is also his trade and industry minister and responsible for overseeing Russian weapons and defense industry and supplies of equipment for troops. Putin criticized him for working too slowly on the country's aircraft contracts, according to a transcript of the later call published by the Kremlin. Menturov, who has accompanied the president on several trips and is thought to have his favor, attempted to justify the delays, explaining that his ministry was set to build helicopter engines in St. Petersburg that were previously manufactured in Ukraine, when Putin rolled his eyes and replied, "Too long. It is taking too long. I ask you to expedite this work." At the beginning of the call, Manturov, who became subject to UK sanctions last month, is heard promising Putin that he will provide 175 billion rubles to state airline Aeroflot to lease civilian and military aircraft for 2023 through to 2025. Holy moly, a whole 2 years? That tells you the Russians are planning on this war going on forever. They're not seeing an end in sight to this thing at all.
Isn't that kind of interesting how he gets them into this whole situation, and now won't start pointing fingers at people who he's ordered to start the invasion?
Yeah, it's like, oh man, gee, if only someone could have stopped this whole entire calamity from happening. You know, I'm just a president that's the subject of fate. It's not like I ordered the invasion of Ukraine, and I got these incompetent military commanders in charge and got nothing of them. So that way, whenever we try and replace one, another incompetent guy takes his place, and then begins the same crap over. I never did any of that. I'm the victim here, and all these guys are just stupid and started this whole thing, and it's all their fault.
That whole strongman persona sure is starting to disappear pretty fast.
Yeah, it really is. And let's see here. However, Putin interrupts to claim none of the contracts are ready. I know there are no contracts at the Enterprises, the directors told me. He says, "What are you, really, playing the fool? When will the contracts be signed?" These 700 aircraft, holy hell, they don't even, oh my god, we're going to go into that in a second, including helicopters, need to be worked out together with the Ministry of Defense so that it is clear how many the military department will order and how many civilian ships will be ordered. Some enterprises still do not have an order even for 2023. Everyone understands the urgency of these issues, Putin says, adding that everything must be done within a month. No, don't try to do your best. Do it within a month. Don't you understand the situation we're in? That is a very desperate sounding statement right
Yeah,
there.
really. What does that mean?
It needs to be done in a month, no later. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov was later quoted by state media agency TASS as saying that Putin had no serious complaints about Manturov's work, which is a complete lie because we have the video right here. So let's watch it because it has subtitles, and this is a very short one.
На предприятиях. Мне директора сказали, ну чего вы в самом деле, дурака-то валяете? Контракты когда будут? Я вот о чем говорю.
Now, you know, this is very interesting because these kinds of public displays of discontent, I guess you could say, from Putin are a bit of a historic thing. If you look back through Russia's history, he has done these on multiple occasions. However, whenever he's done it, because corruption exists in every level in Russia. In case if y'all didn't know, I'll catch y'all up to speed. Corruption is kind of just the by and large way of operations for the Russians. But whenever the corruption got so bad that industries would practically cease to operate, or the Russians were operating so incompetently that nothing was getting done at all, he would set up these public humiliation ordeals that would occur on TV. So that way the Russian public would feel like, hey, at least he's trying to get on top of the situation. He's not a part of the corruption. But whenever he did these in the past, things had really fallen apart, truly. And he's doing it now. And this statement right here, don't you understand the situation we're in? It shows clearly, and also Anthony Rayleigh said it's all for TV. Do you? I would have to ask you this: do you think that is a good statement to make to the public, saying, "Don't you understand the situation we're in"? That is not a good statement at all, because that completely reverses everything they've been saying about it's a winning war. We're winning it. It's just a little bit of a long one, is all. And now they're going, "Don't you understand the situation we're in? We're about to be screwed. This needs to be done in a month." And that does not sound good at all.
First time they said that thus far, because I haven't heard that before.
Well, this is the first time we've ever seen them make the war sound like a very desperate situation where everything was on the verge of collapse. This is the first time we've ever heard this.
Yeah, it sounds like they're getting more than just desperate, because the other option they had was to mobilize again. So it sounds like a mobilization is going to take much longer than a month, I would guess.
And so moving on through the rest of the article, because this even gets more interesting. No, I'm about to add to this, Matthew. No, I'm about to add to it. The televised incident is likely part of an ongoing Kremlin information campaign to elevate Putin's image as an involved wartime leader. I don't think that's true, because if he was involved, how come all of this corruption and shortcomings have been going on for 11 months?
Yeah, that's just a blame game.
Yeah, this is a blame game thing. It's gotten so bad that apparently it's gotten to the Russian public, and it's starting to become a widespread thing that's known that both the military is incompetent and the war industry is incompetent. And so now he's trying to come out and do some damage control and make it look like he's doing something, but that doesn't make him look involved. That just makes him look incompetent. For all of this to have happened for an entire year under his nose, and now he's just getting wind of it and making a problem of it, that doesn't make any sense. And so moving on from that, Putin likely seeks scapegoats for the Russian defense industrial base's struggle to address equipment and technological shortages, the report read. The Kremlin could have cut out the disagreement from its official transcript, but chose to publicize Putin's harsh response, possibly to identify other officials within the Kremlin as the culprits for the Russian defense industrial base's challenges, and possibly to threaten other officials. So pretty much what this is trying to say is that things have gone so badly that Putin is trying to blame others rather than himself for the failings that he can only be blamed for. So we're gonna cut out the rest of this, because the rest of it just pretty much sums it up. But that's not good. That's not good at all. And I wanted to make sure we cover that news, because considering that he's saying that aircraft orders are not being fulfilled, he was talking about that as a particular instance, but he said the entire war industry was not working. That means we can assume that beyond the most basic firearms like the AK-74 or the AK-12, nothing is being made in Russia at all. Like we've been saying, they lack the ability to do it. And not only that, if they had a slight ability to do it, the sheer incompetence of the people and the oligarchs that have been put in charge of this arena in Russia, this part of their economy, cannot get it done. So it's completely at a dead standstill. They're not going to be producing any more equipment, and that's why we've been seeing the old stockpiles being brought out and brought into operation, like the T-62Ms. There is no way you can tell me that this is normal. And let me put in Ukraine right here, and let me show you the pictures. Here's a T-62M in Ukraine. Here's another T-62M being transported into Ukraine that we saw a while ago. Here's another one. They've been here so long that this was taken in the summer. And that's how badly they've been doing for this long. Here's another picture, clearly marked with Z's inside of Ukraine. They're everywhere. These things are so old that Putin's father, an 18-year-old boy, may have been employed in one of the factories to produce one of these tanks. That's how old they are, and they're using them. The Russians haven't been able to make anything new, to the point that they're having to now take the T-90Ss that were supposed to be exported to India, and I'll show you all that right here. So let me put in T-90S India. And this is a T-90S. And you see that it's called a Bhishma in India, and that's what it is. And these were supposed to be exported to them, but they're being captured in Ukraine right now in the Kherson Oblast, which shows that they're lacking the industrial ability so badly after the sanctions that they can't even produce anything new. The T-90S Bhishmas that were on the assembly line to be exported to India, their orders have now been canceled, and they're taking those tanks and having to send them into the military to try and get any modern tanks at all. At all. That's how badly they're doing. And so now Putin's trying to make it seem like it was all those guys' fault and not mine. So I had to make sure to cover that because I remembered that that was a thing that happened. I couldn't find any actual clips until that point when I pulled it up. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from the Russian news, and things are starting to look even more desperate in Russia as the war continues on. And with that, we're now moving down into the Kreminna area. And to go over this front line once again, we are not seeing any movement by and large from the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have completely stopped the offensive in this area that was supposed to have been occurring. We don't know if they've run into a roadblock or anything similar, but this is definitely behind expectations and schedule. We were expecting that the Ukrainians would already be on the outskirts of Kreminna by this point about 5 days ago, and that they would be in the process of taking the town. However, it appears that they've stopped outside of Dubrova, and they have not captured that village either, although the Russians have withdrawn from it and are now holding in the small series of houses that are known as the village of Kuzmini. So we're going to be waiting to see what's going on here, but some action is still continuing. And we did see that today as the Ukrainian HIMARS was firing off its rockets into the distance, most likely trying to target Russian forces around the area of Kreminna. You see snow on the ground, dating it to a present day. And the HIMARS has now fired off its entire inventory of missiles, and hopefully all of those find their targets and hit them. Of course, the HIMARS is one of the most accurate MLRSs out there in the world. It actually is the most accurate. Using GPS guidance, it can hit a pinpoint target at over 50 miles away, with each individual missile going to a separate target. So, once again, good to know that they're using them. Hopefully they are hitting Russian forces in the area around Kreminna, and we can see the Russian response to this HIMARS use in the next clip, as they use the heavily outdated Tulpan. Again, they love the Tulpan. I don't know what it is with the Russians and the Tulpan, but they have a relationship with that Tulpan like a certain guy and a certain person that that's first name had to do with inclement weather and the last name had to do with Daniels. But here's the clip of them using the Tulpan. Also, I love the engine that's going to give everyone tinnitus here in a minute. Just
that is blaring.
Now see them firing the Tulpan. The Tulpan only has a range of 8 miles.
Dang. That thing's got some power behind it.
It does, but not a lot of range. And now the video repeats and we hear the absolute sheer ear violation that's going on there. We're going to have to call the cops on that one to see if they can, you know, probably put this thing in jail or at least in cuffs. But with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, beyond the artillery exchanges that are occurring in the Kreminna area, not much is happening in frontline changes. It doesn't even seem as though the Ukrainians are even fighting much in this area anymore, or the Russians. They've almost completely withdrawn from firefights, and they're sitting still. This may be due to the inclement weather, the snow and such, and they're now all focusing their efforts on the Bakhmut area, but we're not really sure. So we're going to keep up to date on this area. We're going to be trying to see what's going on here. And once again, I do have to say this. We are a pro-Ukrainian channel because, you know, every once in a while I say something that is not necessarily positive of the situation, but we are a pro-Ukrainian channel, but we keep the frontline analysis unbiased. We try and report the situation as we're seeing it, and right now, based off of our expectations for the Kreminna area and what it appeared to be sizing up to, it is a delayed offensive, if there ever was one. We only saw them push the Russians out of Dubrova, and their goal was most likely to take Kreminna, so we never really saw that happen. But still, hopefully one day they will launch a successful offensive that will push on through Dubrova, capture it, and then on into Kreminna, but for now, that's not occurring. We're now going to be moving on into, also, Keith Does Things said, speak up, please. I'm going to be honest with y'all, I'm actually trying something a little different tonight. I'm trying to keep my voice not as high-pitched and hype, and I'm trying to just make it sound a little bit more normal to see if people enjoy that a little bit better. And if y'all don't, we'll go back to the normal, hyped-up voice.
Sounds like Keith wants the old version back.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if y'all enjoy it. If y'all enjoy this voice, let me know. If y'all don't, let me know, and we'll see what we'll do. But with that, we're moving on from the Kreminna area, and we're now moving on down into Bakhmut, which is where we're pretty much hanging out for the rest of the night, because there's only 3 other pieces of news outside of Bakhmut. So, before we move in there, Matthew has put up a really interesting poll about what Putin said, and a decent amount of y'all have voted on it in a really short amount of time. Just a matter of 6 minutes, nearly 1,000 of y'all have voted on it. So, real quick, guide us through that poll, and let us hear what we got. Also, Keith Does Things. It's good to know that's a joke, because we can't ever pick up sarcasm in text. It's like completely a miss. We just read it as it is. But with that, we are on to the polls.
All right, and we have 3 polls to address this time, so one more than usual. The most recent one says, what do you interpret Putin's recent desperate finger-pointing statements to mean? 62%, actually now 61% said he's trying to shift the blame. 20% said he's simply making propaganda. 14% say he's preparing for drastic action. And 5% said unsure. I'm going to have to go with the majority here. It appears to me he's simply trying to shift the blame. Or at least me, I've said many times that he's preparing for some kind of drastic action, and it turns out it was literally nothing, except for like blind bluff statements. So I'm not going to say that again. I think Putin is a coward, and he wouldn't do anything drastic like that, or at least right now. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say he's most likely trying to shift the blame. I would say that's most likely the obvious thing that's going on here, at least in my opinion, because why in the world would he be trying to say, oh, you know, the war industry is doing terribly. They haven't even fulfilled a single order, and make that public. That doesn't sound good. There's no way to, like in the United States, even with the very transparent governmental atmosphere we have here compared to Russia, those kinds of failures and embarrassments would be the subject of national scandal over here, dominating headlines and requiring congressional action immediately. Something similar to that. And so to say that the Russians would do that for a propaganda reason, propaganda is supposed to make you look good. That doesn't make you look good. That makes you look bad. That makes everything look terrible. That's like let me go back and address this real quick, because this is a very important historical point on how the Russians actually address things. The Kursk disaster, which is probably the most, I guess you could say, clear way of the Russians' mode of operations with this kind of stuff. The Kursk submarine had a detonation due to a faulty, I believe it was a fuse inside of a torpedo, which exploded within the torpedo bay and blew off the entire bow of the submarine, sending the thing plummeting down to the very bottom of the ocean floor with some of the crew still alive. Most of them did die in the explosion, though. And so for the next few days, while there were Russian crew members alive down there on that submarine, the Russian government said, hey, it's fine. They're on a training mission. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just sitting there. You know, they're on training. They're perfectly fine. Everyone's alive. And no one was alive. Hardly anyone was alive. We assumed that there was only about 14 guys left on the entire submarine of about 140 people that were still alive down there. And they were just hanging out, really waiting for death, because the Russians refused to admit that there had been a disaster. They never sent out any recovery ships. They never asked NATO or any Western countries at the time that were offering their assistance to rescue the crew or to try and find the Kursk. They were completely refusing their help, saying, no, it's fine. It's never even sank in the first place. It's perfectly okay. And we knew it had sank in the west because it was picked up on sonar exploding. And that's a very clear indication that something's wrong. So anyways, after about 3 days of the Kursk sitting at the bottom of I believe it was the Arctic Ocean near Arkhangelsk, one of the guys tried to replace, one of the guys who were left alive, tried to replace one of the oxygen scrubbers with with a filter that they had found. And when it fell into the water, it created an electrical spark, causing a fire and burning out the rest of the oxygen in the room, and they all suffocated to death if they already hadn't died. So, because of the Russians' response and not really wanting to admit any kind of failure at all, they didn't say anything about it until they were all dead. And about a little while later, they were finally like, yeah, there's been a bit of a problem, but it's okay. And then after that, they said everyone died. It was a terrible disaster. And then the families freaked out and they wanted compensation. Of course, like in Russia, you don't really care about the loved ones too much. You just care about the money you'll get from their death. And such things like that. So if you want to go off the Kursk disaster and how they did that, which was also an incident that occurred under Putin, just keep that in mind. This was all orchestrated by Putin with the whole entire misinformation going on about what had happened to the submarine. Admitting failures, catastrophic failures, especially pertaining to the war industry or the military, is something that the Russians never do. And this is a perfect historical example of that. So the idea of them coming out publicly and saying that our war industry is completely incompetent, completely fallen apart, and we haven't fulfilled a single order last year or even this year planned, that doesn't sound good at all. That sounds like the military is falling apart. It's falling into shambles, and they don't even have anything to fight with. At least that's how the Russian public will take it. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well and gives some historical precedence as to why this is incredibly strange and also really odd for them to say. And you will see that these incidents also did happen a couple of times before. Like, for example, I believe this occurred with the Sochi Olympics, when the stadium was taking much longer than expected to build and going way over budget. They also made a huge deal about that, and that was mostly because that information had finally become public, and people in Russia were starting to talk about how incompetent and how much of an embarrassment the Russians were looking like, and Putin was perfectly fine with the incompetence going right under his nose. The Sochi Winter Olympics were a big deal for Russia, and so he had a lot of involvement in them. But he never had a problem with the corruption until it became public, and then he made a whole entire embarrassment ordeal about them and what they were doing, and told them to speed the crap up pronto. And that's what they kind of did. They actually got the Sochi Winter Olympics stadium and everything surrounding it in the grounds built in time for 2014. But they still were heavily over budget, and a lot of corruption was involved. So I hope that answers that poll fairly well, because that was actually a really good one. There's a lot of precedent in how the Russians operate with these situations and why they would make a statement like that. And it's entirely because they are falling behind and things are getting incredibly worse. But with that, do we have another poll?
Yes, we do. We have two more. And the next one says, has Ukraine abandoned Soledar, or is the fight still ongoing? It looks like 64% said Ukraine is fighting on the edge of town, 21% said unsure, and 15% said no, Ukraine has abandoned the town completely. So what I've seen from sources, it looks like Ukraine is saying that they're fighting on the edge of town, and Russia is saying that they've completely driven them out. So obviously we know Russia is a liar, so I would have to assume that they are on the edge of Soledar. However, if they're on the edge of it, that means they probably lost the entire thing completely. So it's probably a mix of both. There's some truth in between there somewhere. But Enforcer, what say you?
The true answer to that poll, and I'm not saying this is the definitive answer, it really just depends on your definition of control. My definition of control is who controls the majority of a town. That is who owns the town and has taken it over. And when the Ukrainians controlled 55% of Soledar, Ukraine held the town. When they controlled 100% of it, Ukraine held the town. As soon as the Russians ended up controlling 60% of the town, which just occurred about 2 days ago, or really just yesterday, last night, the Russians are the ones who now hold the town. The Ukrainians are fighting, however, on the very outskirts of the town, I believe it's like the last few blocks left before you start getting into Blahudatne. But by and large, the answer off of my opinion of who controls the town, which is the majority of its landmass, the Russians do control almost the entirety of Soledar and do hold it right now. That is the direction we see Soledar going in. That is something that I have seen some people grappling with, and some people say, no, the Ukrainians still do control some of it. But I use this definition with the Russians. If the Russians do not control a majority of a town, the Ukrainians are holding it. If the Russians control a majority of the town and the Ukrainians hold a small part of it, the Russians control it. That's just how we see it. Well, that's just how I see it. So, in my opinion, the Russians do hold Soledar. They have taken the town, but the Ukrainians are still fighting on the very outskirts, most likely in some kind of a defensive rearguard action, while they create the second defensive line in Bakhmut and Krasna Hora. And I gotta say this is not a big... Some people are trying to make this into a big deal, largely the Russians, and for some reason people are feeding into it. This is not that big of a deal. Some people have tried to say, and we also had one on the channel, and it was a good point for a while, and then someone brought up a great counter to it, that Soledar has the salt mines that can be used for storage. However, salt's very corrosive, and a lot of military, I guess you could say, equipment is made out of metal, so it's not really good to put them in the salt mine, because they'll just corrode down there and be completely wasted.
They're going to definitely put them in the salt mine. I can tell you that right now. They'll do the most stupid thing possible.
Put them in the salt mine, Bliat, and then they pull out the shell and try and fire it, and the artillery piece just explodes, you know, because the shell was so corroded. That's probably what they'll do. It probably end up becoming Ukraine's advantage, really, but they have taken it. That's just really my rundown. Not the worst thing that's happened in the world, and you have to remember that this isn't the end of the world. We've seen things like this happen before on a much larger scale, like Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. We've also seen Izium get taken. We've also seen Kherson get taken. And let me guide y'all through real quick all the towns that the Ukrainians have taken over the past few months that are larger than Soledar. So, starting off with the first one, probably the most obvious one, Balaklia, Izium, Kupiansk, Kupiansk-Veslovy, Svenkove, Borova, Liban, Sviatohirsk. Let's see, not Kreminna. That has been taken. Moving on further down the line and on into Kherson, we saw Chernobyevka get retaken. We saw Bielozerka get retaken. Kherson get retaken. We've seen a lot of cities get retaken that are in the tens of thousands, if not the hundreds of thousands in size over these past few months. And now, because the Russians took a town that 10,000 people lived in, for some reason, a story is being made that the Ukrainians are losing the war. And then if you look over the past few months, the Ukrainians have had nothing but victories, and this is the first victory the Russians have had out of this entire 4-month span, is taking a small village. That does not equate to winning to me. And of course, I think it's a little bit of it's a completely fantasy idea that the Ukrainians are going to win every single battle. That is fantasy. There's no such thing. The Union in the Civil War didn't win every single battle. They actually lost a lot of them all the way up until 1863. Also, the United States during the American Revolution lost a load of battles, but still ended up winning the war. In fact, for the most part, it seemed as though Washington's army, which is the main army of the Continental Forces, was going to be wiped out throughout the entirety of the Revolution, almost through every single battle. But somehow, they would just eke out a survival, pretty much, although it'd still be a defeat. So, and those are even larger instances, larger occasions where almost the fate of an entire country was actually in the balance with those defeats. But with Soledar, that's not the case. This isn't a Severodonetsk or Lysychansk. This isn't a Mariupol. This isn't a Melitopol. This is Soledar, and you can find a million towns that the Russians have taken, about the size of Soledar, and they have not ended up dictating that the Ukrainians would lose this war. If anything, the Ukrainians have counterattacked over the past 4 months and retaken massive amounts of ground. Ground so much in size and volume that we've never seen the Russians pull off anything similar ever since the first month of the war. So, in my opinion, while they do control Soledar, this isn't showing that the Russians are now on some kind of up-and-up streak. Hell, it took them 4 months. It took them 2 battles of Bakhmut to finally take just an outskirt village on the northern flank of Bakhmut, which is kind of getting them a little bit close to finally achieving just a capture of the northern flank. This doesn't really amount to anything. But with that, I hope that does address the poll. In my opinion, the Russians have taken it, though. So with that, we are on to the next poll.
All right. And the next poll was slightly controversial. It got people stirred up in the chat a little bit. It looks like it's a pretty, I guess you could say, evenly distributed poll. But let's see here. The question is, if civilians remain in Soledar, should Ukraine forego their opportunity to eliminate the Russian military? Meaning, should they not level the city out of consideration of the civilians left? It looks like 41% said no, the civilians had the opportunity to leave. 25% said yes, they should forgo their opportunity because you can't risk civilian casualties. 19% said it depends on the number left behind, and 16% said unsure. Now, on this one, I'm going to have to go with the controversial option that some people are going to probably object to. I think that the civilians that are left had the opportunity to leave. I understand why they want to stay, because some people, that's all they know is their town. But at the same time, they're potentially risking a lot of other lives because they want to stay in their town. Because if the Ukrainians forgo this opportunity to wipe out the Russian military, that could allow them to regroup completely and then attack Bakhmut and potentially take it, and then move on from there, which costs more Ukrainian lives. So I'm going to go with the 41% that said no. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say, in my opinion, leveling the town is still impractical, like in the sense of just like carpet bombing the thing with rolling barrages. That wouldn't make any sense from a supply standpoint, because there's a lot more effective ways to use that ammunition, considering that the Ukrainian artillerists are incredibly accurate, fairly effective, and they also have Excalibur rounds and such things like that. It wouldn't be effective to just try and roll the town and just kill civilians for no reason when the Ukrainians have not really operated like that. We see that the Ukrainians are already today hammering Soledar heavily with artillery and bomblets, but they're doing it in a precise way where instead of just leveling the town like the Russians would and really gaining no advantage out of it rather than just the destruction of it, they're actually taking out Russian soldiers. So in my opinion, I would say that it seems to me it would be a lot more beneficial to just continue on with what the Ukrainians have been doing, their normal mode of operations, which is just strike the Russians wherever it's advantageous with a precise shot, and not really trying to sit there and expend massive amounts of ammunition and equipment leveling an insignificant village in the large part. Soledar doesn't even amount to much in the actual battle because it was only the first line of defense. In an area like the south, where there's only Klishkivka and Ivanivske, where all the way up till Chasiv Yar, and Ivanivske may as well be Chasiv Yar, Klishkivka and the ridgeline it's attached to may as well be incredibly important. It is really the only line of defense down there before you almost reach your objective. So in that instance, Klishkivka would be incredibly important, and you may want to start trying to do something desperate down there to make sure that the Russians do not continue to move on from that area. However, with Soledar, there is an immediate defensive line directly behind the village, so there is really no point in trying to treat Soledar like it's a, for the Warhammer 40k fans out there, Acadia situation, because it's not Acadia, it's just a village. It's just an insignificant one out of the several few that are up there in that northern flank that the Ukrainians can fall back to and still hold. So, in my opinion... Although for me, I'm not saying to level the city for a strategic reason. I'm saying simply to, eliminate Russian forces. So that way they can't regroup there and then move on and move into Bakhmut. But you could still do that with precise strikes. We saw the Ukrainians obliterate the Russians in Kherson and also in the Izium and Balaklia area with precise strikes, and they didn't have to go through and bulldoze every town with 155mm shells.
I mean, you have somewhat of a point, but then they have to probably mitigate some of the Russians that are hitting in order to avoid the areas which they think civilians are living in. And that might be the areas the Russians specifically go to avoid being hit.
Not quite. If according to the rules of war, if you can confirm that armed combatants are inside of a building, you can shell it. And if there's the likelihood of civilians being inside of a building at this point, especially with only 100 people in Soledar, from what we know, out of an estimated 10,000 that used to live there, the chances of hitting a citizen or a civilian will be incredibly low. It will almost be practically impossible, especially compared to the troop density of Russians that are there. So, and on top of that, we've never really seen the Ukrainians make that reservation before, and you can really tell where the Russians are basing out of. If they're basing in a house, and you see a couple of BTRs outside of it, and a lot of guys just walking in and out of it, it's safe to assume there are no citizens in that building, and to barrage the hell out of that thing and take out the BTRs and the soldiers. So I would say just continue the normal mode of operations has worked for the Ukrainians so far, and it wouldn't make sense to start bulldozing towns and killing civilians, possibly, to just try and make a point and to waste large amounts of ammunition. Then you're falling into a Russian pitfall where you just start expending valuable resources for no practical reason, especially when the Ukrainians have an alternative, which is precise strikes, to gain nothing and lose everything in the end, because then you run out of artillery shells to fight in the Bakhmut area. Now you have no artillery support for your infantry that are getting bombarded by the Russians. They now start pushing the Ukrainians out of the area because they have no support. So with that, I hope that addresses the poll fairly well in my opinion. And with that, we are on, I believe, to the next one or to the questions.
Yes, this next poll is a real quick one. Due to popular demand, which enforcer voice do you prefer? 61% said the normal voice like tonight, 7% said the hype voice. Seems to be the very unpopular option on that one. 32% said I don't care, whatever works. So it looks like the normal voice is the winner.
Yeah, it appears that the normal voice works out. Ha, got you, Mom. If I've been doing this for 200 something days and they like the normal voice, I wonder if she can even hear me. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from that poll, and we're now going to be moving on into the questions.
All right, so moving on to our super chat questions, we have the first one from Duncan VR, who puts in a massive $100 donation and says, all the animal noises once again. This is a disclaimer. I'm simply reading the super chat. So somebody's going to say, you goofball, if I'm reading the super chat. Duncan says, Bamuba, message to Commander Igor, Ukraine army who listened to the show, please send drone to Moscow, meow woof, drop bomblet on Putin's chair, baba meow, blow up his kneecaps, meow. This is for the Igor fund. Take a question from the chat, rough.
And thank you so much for the support, Duncan VR. It of course is massive support, and it helps this channel to keep on running. And I say this every night. I hate saying like almost the same thing every night. I don't really know how to word it any other way though. But I do have to thank you so much for the support, Duncan, because without that kind of support, it wouldn't be possible for us to keep running. And I just gotta say thank you, a whole load. And also for being a channel legend. You've been around forever and helping us to keep this thing going. So with that, I don't really know, again, how to respond to that stuff, because I don't really know how to, but I got to thank you so much once again for the support, Duncan, because without it, and I do say this seriously, without y'all's support, the viewer support, this wouldn't be possible. Fundraisers wouldn't reach goals. We wouldn't be able to survive behind the scenes. So any support counts. Y'all are literally the only thing that keeps this thing going. We don't run ads. We don't run anything. Also, by the way, speaking of which, I hope y'all enjoyed that video I put out today. I actually was inspired to do that, and I don't know if this guy is watching, but I was actually inspired to do that after I got out of one of my college classes today, and I ate lunch with someone that I met from one of my history classes, and he asked, why are we supporting the Ukrainians in this war? And I just explained the whole situation to them and why we were, and so then I came home and I was like, wow, that would just make a great video topic, to answer as a video. So that's what I did. And it looks like a decent amount of y'all enjoyed it. Not a lot of y'all have seen it, though, and it appears that the title or the thumbnail wasn't really that good to push it to a lot of y'all, but if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you do, because, not biased or anything, it's pretty good. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Duncan. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, at least the best I can, and with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you for being an old guard and a channel legend.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $50 super chat from Justice Ryan, who says, will Germany release the Leopard 2 tanks next week at the Rheinstein meeting to Poland and the other NATO countries, because everyone is getting tired of the runaround by Olaf Scholz?
I thank you so much for the support and a great question. And I've got to tell you, I'm really exasperated with the Germans at this point as well, because it makes reporting on them incredibly difficult. They're giving us nothing but hee-haw, and there's really no clear answer as to what the hell they're really doing, because one day they were saying, next week it'll be leopards. We sent martyrs this week, it'll be leopards next week. Then this next week came, and we're in it, and then they said, we're waiting on America, or we're waiting on our transatlantic partner to do something, and once they send a tank, we'll send one. And now today, they're going, well, actually, we're thinking about sending them, and I don't know what the hell they're doing anymore. They keep on flip-flopping each day from yes to no, and they're not making any clear answer. We really don't know what they're doing. We really don't know what they're going to be doing tomorrow, because they said yes today, but they also said yes last week, and then they said no the day before that. So I don't really know. I hate to say that, though. I feel like, in all honesty, there is probably going to be some kind of pressure put on them to send the leopards, because they have thousands of them, and there's a lot of need for them in Ukraine. So I feel like they will be sending them, but I can't really tell y'all for certain, because we still have no idea, because they're flip-flopping so much. So to give you a straightforward, clear answer here, we have no idea. It sounds like today, at least, they're in the direction of doing that, but they are flip-flopping so much we don't really know if that's going to hold up into tomorrow. But with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And I have to say this, man, a lot of people always give flack to the Swiss for being a neutral country. I feel like it's honestly better to be a declared neutral country like Switzerland instead of almost a fence rider like the German government has been with some of their support, where they'll go, yeah, we're sending it, no, we're not, yeah, no, and they'll just do that for weeks until they finally either send it or they don't.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I really don't like the indecisiveness. At least Switzerland, like you said, is like steadfast in being neutral. But I don't really know what Germany's like overall plan is at this point.
I don't really know what it is either, because the United States has a strategy and a plan to our support. We have a base. We send over, I guess you could say, let's actually do this real quick, because I think this would be kind of interesting, a little funny. Pull up Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid, because we have done almost all of these things, and we're moving on up towards the top. So the bottom needs, the psychological needs, which I don't know why it's called that, Matthew, because it's air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, and reproduction, which I actually have never heard that one included before. But how the hell is that psychological
That's a need?
needs? Yeah, I thought that was a basic need. This must be in the Netherlands, where they actually do consider that a basic, like, human right and need. Did you know that?
They consider that a human need?
They consider that a human right. There's actually state-operated brothels in the Netherlands.
I mean, I don't know if I can delve into that one without getting political.
No, I wasn't asking you to delve into. I was just informing you, Matthew. I was just giving you a notice. But moving on from that, the psychological needs, or I would call the basic needs that we provided to the Ukrainians, was heavy artillery like the M777s and the HIMARS, which allowed their infantry to be supported enough that the Russians couldn't advance much farther without incurring high casualties. The safety needs, the personal security, employment, resources, health, and property, we started to provide that well, actually, I would say the basic needs were also the javelins as well. Those were definitely just bare basic needs. The safety needs are more so in the direction of transportation, the M113s, the Humvees, and such things like that we've already sent over. The love and belonging needs, I don't know what this pyramid is, because I've never really heard it put like this before, but we'll just go with it. Friendship, intimacy, family, sense of connection. We've started to provide that through our economic support directly to Ukraine, not through military support, but just straight up economic support to keep their economy going. We're now kind of moving into the, I guess you could say, the esteem realm, where we're actually trying to just modernize the Ukrainian army from the ground up by sending them modern infantry fighting vehicles like the Bradley. Maybe in the future it'll be accompanied by the Abrams, although it doesn't sound like that right now. And then the self-actualizations will be things that are, I would guess you could say, at the very high end, like an F-16C or something similar. That's most likely the pyramid that I'm seeing occurring right now with our support. But the Germans, they just kind of flip around from whatever. And they sent the esteem needs, like the Iris-T, and then they'll send some love and belonging, like a little bit of economic support, some safety needs, like the Panzer Haubitz, and maybe a couple of other items. But you never see them actually giving anything that is just a basic plan, like, we're building you from the ground up. Hell, even the British haven't provided that much support to the Americans, but they're one of the ones that are well on up there, getting close to the United States, and they actually have a pyramid as well. They provided the Brimstones, the Star Streaks, then they started to provide the armored personnel carriers, now they're starting to provide the tanks, and that's actually...
I see everyone getting on you saying it's not psychological, it's physiological.
Actually, I've been misreading that the entire time, haven't I? Yeah. That is actually physiological, not psychological.
Physiological, because, if, well, I won't say that, never mind. I'll withhold that.
So, yeah, everyone can flame me. Bill Jenkins said, words are hard. I'll tell you this, when you wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I've been going all day ever since, like going to college, then talking to people, then driving home, then working on some stuff down here on college, and then working on the stream, and then getting to the stream, I will tell you that reading does become a little bit hard at this point, because I've been going nonstop for 12 hours, and that's what I've been doing for 5 days straight now that college has started again, and now not all of my classes, but I have a class every single day in person, so it takes 4 hours to get to that class, sit in the class, and then drive home, and also a little bit of time beforehand to just wake up, eat, and get ready. So, yes, sorry about that, everyone. I'm misreading that. That's physiological.
Also, real quick, so you're talking about Germany. You're sort of fed up with them, right?
Yeah.
Well, Mick Ranger just told me some interesting news, and I pulled it up to confirm it. It looks like the German defense minister is resigning.
Oh, really?
Yes, it says soon to resign, but it looks like he might have just resigned.
May leave her post as soon as next week.
So that might change things a little bit. I wonder why he resigned.
Let's see if it gives a reason. Come on, DW, work with me. Okay, apparently not. How about Reuters? Plans to resign, as he cautiously seeks, potentially adding to Chancellor Olaf Scholz's problems. Lambrecht, a member of the SPD, aimed to resign next week and had already informed Scholz about her decision, a government source said, confirming a report by Deutsche Zeitung. The paper listed the parliamentary commissioner, I said that wrong again, sorry, for the armed forces, Eva Hogel, and junior defense minister, Siemt Moller, as potential successors. I know I'm saying that wrong. Spiegel magazine, let's see, but what about rather than the political moves? Can we just get to the reason why? The news, under pressure, Lambrecht has been blamed for failing to get the Bundeswehr back in shape quickly, despite a 100 billion euro special fund being agreed on for that purpose after Russia invaded Ukraine. So it appears that she hasn't really been all too keen into following through the German rearmament and also the delivery of weapons, and so she's now resigning, which make the Germans a little bit more apt to send the stuff, since there's not really that much opposition in the way now, hopefully, after that person resigned. So with that, I hope that does address that. We didn't actually know about that. Well, kind of knew about that news, didn't know it was for that reason. But still, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and hopefully we won't be that miffed at the German government all too much. The German government also, in terms of their support, because we have some German viewers in here, I don't want our German viewers to think that we're saying that the German people are not supportive of Ukraine. The German people are highly supportive of Ukraine, one of the highest in the European Union, somewhere around, I think, like 75%, which is on up towards the higher percentiles. It's just that the German government is largely scared of looking like the Germans from the 40s, and so they are incredibly scared to really do anything because their ghosts haunt them. And so they're like, oh crap, if we send stuff, are we going to be looked at as like the rebirth of the Nazis or something like that? And so it's freaking them out, and they're not really doing much or sending much for that reason. But with that, I hope that it kind of addresses the situation in a nutshell. And of course, there's a lot more detail to that. And also, Buddy said she wanted to send tanks. This is bad news. We'll keep that in mind. Anyways, with that, I think we were on to the next question.
Yes, we have one more to go for this first segment, and this one goes to Walter A. Lakota Jr., channel legend, who puts in a $20 donation and says, Aloha, Enforcer Matt, and LSA from OG Ellison Bosun. About the cursed disaster, the ship I'm bosun on, the USNS Loyal, was mentioned in a national news article about having tapes being about 600 miles away.
Oh my God! Look at this thing he's based on, Matthew. It's a what is this thing
like
called?
A catamaran.
A catamaran, or I was about to say a pontoon, but it's a catamaran. Wild.
That's very cool. We looked at it before. It's like it looks really stable.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It looks. Yeah. It looks really stable. But let's see what it does. A Victorious-class ocean surveillance ship acquired by the Navy in '93 and assigned to the Navy's Special Mission Programs. That is super cool. Like, wow. That thing also looks really cool. It's been a while since we looked at it. I forgot how cool it was, but isn't that thing neat? It's literally a catamaran.
I like that a lot. That's pretty cool.
I like it a lot. That thing is really neat. And also cool to know, once again, Walter, that not only are you one of our in-house merchant marines, but you also have a really cool story as to what your job is and what ship you serve on. That's just the coolest thing ever, I gotta say. Also, I like the lifeboats. Those were the same kind, I think, that were on the Alabama during the pirate situation where they dumped the lifeboat overboard and they were on it when the whole ordeal occurred. Anyways,
also, Walter, let us know, does this ship list and roll a lot, or is it like actually pretty stable like it looks?
Let's see here. It was signed, vessel particulars, mission, operational history. Let's see, there's no journal entries. Ocean surveillance. I'm trying to find something about it. And let's see, let's just type it in. Are catamarans more stable? Catamarans are far more stable than monohulls. So yes, the straightforward answer is that this thing is stable. You could be sitting there rocking the bed and no one's gonna feel it. You know what I mean? Anyways, with that, real quick, can you reread it again? Make sure that I covered everything I can.
Yes. Walter said about the Kursk disaster. The ship I'm on is mentioned in a national news article about having tapes being 600 miles away.
Oh, that's actually.
Also, Walter said it's called a swath hull design.
Oh, so let's pull that up. Are swath hulls more stable? There is a much more stable platform compared to a traditional monohull, useful when approaching wind turbines and for safe crew transfers and waves. Interesting. I'm sure that it's using that design for a hull, if I'm correct, and you can correct us if I'm wrong, Walter, because you are the guy who probably knows everything about this ship. It's probably has that hull design for its mission, considering it's a ocean surveillance ship, probably trying to get some kind of information on the ocean floor or something similar. I don't really know. But if you could share that with us, that would be cool. And so it has to have a really stable design to do that in any kind of weather conditions. I'm taking a lot of assumptions here, so let me know if I'm right on any of that. But still, really cool to hear that that ship was actually involved in one form or another in the Kursk disaster, or at least picking it up. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And now it's time for us to move on down back into the Soledar area where we actually have the clips of what's been going on here. And now it's time for us to get into the first one. So starting off, we saw the Midar birds in action. The Midar birds is a unit that's been operating largely with drones across all of Ukraine during the war. And we can see here that they were able to effectively hit some little guys and turn them into what Starsky would call a good Russian.
Просто мурашник, блин. 30. 25, я знаю. Потім вночі рахуватимемо, зараз скрити треба. Бач. На ножі.
На руке, ноги, да.
Це він труба переде?
Да, труба.
Отой, що далі 200, да? 50, там де двоє.
Той ще оповзав.
Да, але цей, що з трубою, ще живий.
Да.
Сука, йобаний. Але він добре лежить, його можна загандошити. Дай трошки крупний план туди, от на тих задніх, там де загандошений. Інші де? Де інші, Ара?
Все по дорозі, все по дорозі.
Всі по площині. Вони не вийшли праворуч?
You can see the drone looking around for the Russians.
Все по дорозі.
Ні, він ще боєздатний, він хуяри зараз стрілкотнею.
Де вище?
Не бачимо по дорозі, Ара, не бачимо. Приблизь. Він стріляє, працює чи, блядь, вже відпочиває.
Що?
Не видно, так? Да? Ну, позиція не схожа на загандошеного.
Ні, то лежить.
Він просто перечікує.
Да.
Інших треба дивитися, вони кудись відійшли, блядь.
Да, живой.
О, живий, піздар, раз. Так, спостерігай, він може ось.
We see some of the Russians running around.
Збили, блядь, збили, пацани, молодці.
And Matthew, I think this is the Jugga Jugga guy.
It sounds like. I thought the voice sounded familiar.
Boof. Jugga Jugga.
П'ятий. Давай, супроведи їх трошки зумом туди, щоб розуміти, де вони нирнуть. Шостий, блядь.
Пацаны, смотрите, по дороге бегут обратно.
Дивіться, перехоплюйте у Ари, у нього батарейка на заміну.
Обратно, потому что маршрут...
45-та просить зум мінус, хоче вогонь відкрити.
Вы их видите?
Нет. Ну вот тут они. Вот тут лежали один с РПГшкой.
Та ж біжуть нахуй прямо, видно, їх толпа, бля, біжить.
Выше.
Вони швиденько побігли, вони вже відійшли. Але не всі, хлопці.
Они на этой развилке вот в лес забегают в сторону дома.
Бачимо.
А вони зараз разом?
We see them still looking around for him. We can see one of them taking a nap on the road. Kind of an odd place and not good for road traffic.
А, це вже труп?
Він не рухається.
Просто сидить. А, він лежить.
Лежить.
Все, розумію. Ні, так нормально, блядь, атаку відбили, чого, вони з'їбалися, просто треба слідкувати, куди ті, блядь, залишки.
Да.
Дай зум. Артусі зараз направ, дай зум.
Ніхуя собі спринтери.
Якби це не був онлайн-запис, я б сказав, що прийшов з прискоренням її бачить.
Wait a minute, hang on. For the weirdest thing, Matthew, I just noticed I haven't been looking at the live chat this entire time we're watching this clip. You know, and I just noticed that there's someone in here. There's somebody in here.
Who might that be?
I don't know. Well, I think this guy knows who we're talking about. He's in here, and everyone is flipping out because I think the last time he was in here was like 180 days ago. And the person we're talking about, and all of y'all know who he is, it's Dennis Davidoff. He's in here.
Oh?
Yeah, like, that's interesting. So, what, like, real quick, what are you doing here? But real quick, we're gonna get back to the clip, but I'm wondering, why? And also, I saw you say something, like, I'm trying to scroll through and read everything. You said YouTube will restrict this. Why? I'm like sitting here, I'm like, why?
Is Denny's having monetization problems again? Is YouTube going through that phase again?
Yeah, because I think we all covered that on the day it happened. All the Ukrainian YouTubers, we all got demonetized in a giant group, and then they remonetized us all the next day. It didn't really affect this channel, but it affected a load of them, a load of channels, pretty much everyone else. But yeah, Dennis is in here, and yeah, he said someone question mark. Yeah, it's you. But anyways, I'm gonna get back to the clip.
Dennis, we need to link up for a Sunday fundraiser, man, on day 365.
You know something, Matthew? That's a plan. Real quick, Dennis. You can find. Oh man, I don't want to say that because I know my email is going to get spammed. Before I say this, I would love to ask if none of y'all could email my email, because it's on the channel, like you can find it on the about page. Please do not email me like a lot, because it makes it really hard to read the important ones. If you could email me, let's see about hooking up on Discord and trying to set something up in the future for a time. We don't know when, but it will be a time. I'm trying to figure out like when it would be. But I think that would be pretty cool, because we've got some plans. And we'll talk it over with you like in private, but we've got some plans, and I think it would be
big plans.
Yeah, really big plans. And I think you would probably be a big fan of them if you heard them. So we're gonna continue this video, but shoot me an email on the channel's email. And we'll try and get the ball rolling on that. So with that, we're gonna let the video continue.
Клим. Да, давай.
Заховалися. Типу в зеленку, да? Раз, два, три, чотири.
And we see the Russians still moving around.
Ти їх просто веди, і він спрацює, блядь. Бачиш, вони...
Да.
Вони кучно йдуть, блядь, зараз треба класти туди.
Відсотків скільки в тебе? 48.
Ще вистачить. Скільки ти на повернення?
32, я повертався нормально.
Але швидко зйобують.
Да.
We see the Russians still climbing through the tree line. We can see that they're advancing in two separate columns. The spacing in the left column is incredibly short, and the spacing in the right column isn't. And so with that, and that's the end of the clip. But once again, fairly interesting to see that the Maidar's birds have been keeping a good eye on the Russians and keeping them down, to say the least, in some instances. With that, we're going to be moving on to the next clip in Soledar, where we saw that the battle did continue to rage on in the outskirts of Soledar, as the Ukrainian forces, from what we know, are still withdrawing and setting up a second defensive line in Krasna Hora and Bakhmut, which, according to what we know, the Russians actually planned on achieving this part of the battle about 4 months ago, in, I would guess you could say, like the first week and a half of the opening of the battle. 4 months later, we're finally seeing that happen, so, you know, once again, whenever we see this, because a lot of people are wanting to say that this is a victory for Russia, 4 months in, is this really a victory? Or is this more so of a prolonged defeat and just getting through the motions of what you were supposed to have done nearly 4 months ago? So with that, we're going to be watching this little clip, because of course the Ukrainians are still giving the Russians hell on the very edge of the town. We can hear an RPG being fired in front of the soldier. We can't really see much because it appears that a sleeve or some kind of fabric is covering the top of the camera.
Та похуй, диви, в мене камера знімає. Там пулемет наверху кажуть. Плюс!
We can see that the action has had a little bit of a lull. We heard some explosions, like right there, and gunfire. You now see them moving around. And from what we can tell, due to the large lack of fire, this must be a rearguard action by the Ukrainian forces as they now set up a second line of defense.
Нема? Блять, пизда нахуй, я їм. Приход! Приход? Да. Де? О!
And with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, a continuing rearguard action by the Ukrainians, it appears, as they're now setting up the new defensive line. And hopefully, this new defensive line will be quite good. Moving on to the next clip from Soledar, we also saw Soledar as it is today. And while Matthew and me have had a little bit of a discussion as to whether the city of Soledar will be leveled here in the future or not, and it appears due to the heavy amount of artillery fire and drone fire that the Ukrainians were using today, if it hasn't already, it will be. Well, not really. It will still be precise strikes, so they're not going to be indiscriminately hitting everything like the Russians do. But we can see what the Russians have done through their indiscriminate bombardment of the town here over the past several months. And so here's a satellite image before the battle began. And here's a satellite image of the city now. Every single building has practically been destroyed.
Oof.
So, you know, it's like really, Matthew, this is a good question. Is there even an option of leveling this town? It appears that it has already been leveled.
Well, where are the civilians staying then that are left?
Probably in basements, on the far reaches of the city.
Huh, so I guess there's really... Huh, okay. Well, that changes things a lot.
It does. And once again, you can see that this didn't really achieve anything for the Russians, this indiscriminate bombardment. And you can see that the fields around the city, this is how much of a barrage it has been for nearly 4 months, are littered with shell holes everywhere. They didn't save a single area from bombardment. And there is no such thing to the Russians as a precision strike. And look at what this kind of strategy amounted for them. The strikes were completely ineffective. They were not actually hitting Ukrainian forces. The Ukrainians, largely, with their forces largely intact, were able to hold off the Russians for 4 months and inflict thousands of dead and most likely tens of thousands wounded just to take this one village with this kind of mindset of leveling the village. It didn't really accomplish anything. And we can see that the Ukrainian precise artillery strikes are able to account for a lot more actual meaningful damage to an armed force, and that can stop them dead in their tracks or make them lose massive amounts of ground like in Kherson and the Balaklia breakthrough.
And also, is this the entirety of Soledar?
Not the entirety. This is a part of it. I believe that if we look at Google Maps, we can probably find where this is in Soledar. So let me scroll down here. We'll find that school. And the school... This is the school right here. So we're matching it up. There's the... Wait a minute, hang on. Let me make sure. That kind of looks like it, but not really. Let's look around a little bit more and make sure. Let's go down here. And we see the rows of apartment blocks. We can see a school over there with an O shape with some kind of a G symbol on top of it. That is not the shape of the school. Let's go back here real quick and let's look at the normal summertime picture because I'm sure that'll be more recognizable. So there's a bend in a road. I can't really tell where this would be. Let's see. I think it's around here. But that's only an assumption.
You know, Soledar isn't a very big little town at all.
No, it's not. It's incredibly small. Its max population before the war was 10,000 people. It's not a big town at all. This thing is minuscule in size. And that's why I'm saying it's no big deal. It's not a Severodonetsk or a Lysychansk. It's not a Mariupol or a Melitopol or a Kherson. This thing is tiny. There is really no strategic importance to this town. Hell, Popasna hardly even held strategic importance when the Russians took that town, and it's nearly 3 times the size. So the town of Soledar hardly even has the ability to have any forces within it or any supplies within it, just due to its size. It's not really an anchor point or anything. It's just taking a first line of defense. It has no value beyond that, so that way they can get on to Krasna Hora.
I would have to agree.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It doesn't really amount to much, but the Russians have treated this thing like it's life or death. And moving on into the next clip, we can see that the Russians did take Soledar. And this is from Radio Free Europe.
Я думаю, что нет. У нас не такого объема стволы, и это очень глубоко, и нет возможности опускать технику. Для того, чтобы мы опускали технику, мы ее полностью разбирали, это очень занимало много времени, и как ходы это невозможно. Во-первых, это вентиляция. Должен быть доступ кислорода быть. У нас же все вентиляторные остановки все остановлены, и нет никакого доступа кислорода, не обновляется воздух. Поэтому находиться там, я думаю, небезопасно.
Пригожин сможет размахивать флагами и говорить, что в отличие от неназванных военачальников, да, он единственный, кто может добиваться успехов, кто эффективен, а уже представить это как великий успех, это уже дело его, собственно говоря, медиаимперии, за которой он, правда, один работает последние полгода ежедневно в нон-стоп.
Well, that is the end of the video, courtesy of Radio Free Europe. And I actually saw a viewer bring up something really interesting. One of you, by the name of Shlav Commandant, said Ukraine lost a very important train line and road, but I guess logistics don't matter. Very interesting way to word that. I think you could have worded that politer and gotten the point across. They haven't. The T-0513 is practically unusable. It was already so close to the front line, it wasn't of any importance anyways. And not only that, but the rail line was so close to the front lines for the past 4 months of the war that it wasn't usable either. So logistically, there's a point where major roadways and railroads get so close to a front line that they're not usable logistically, and that's what we've been saying about the Russians as well. If they are able to take Bakhmut, there's nothing of value in Bakhmut. It's so close to the front lines, it can hardly be used at all. The only things that matter that close to the front line are the major highways. That's it. Beyond that, railroads don't matter because railroads are a stationary structure. You can blow up a railroad track and cause a decent amount of damage to a supply line for the course of 24 hours. So, in my opinion, no, Soledar isn't important at all. It's a small village. And on top of that, its rail line wasn't supporting any infantry. They were being supported by trucks at that point, and the supplies were being offloaded by rail or by other trucks further behind the lines at supply depot. So I don't really see that, but with that, we're going to be moving on into the next clip from Soledar, where we also saw a artisanal today, artisanal, I think that's how it's pronounced, and we can see that, once again, the town has practically already been leveled at this moment, and you can see that the damage here has been incredibly significant. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of news in Soledar, where we also saw that the Wagner unit got hit good. And we got to mute that. That is very, very copyrighted. We see the Russians moving around in the snowy little town. Yippee, Vladimir, we caught it. It's great, right? It's wonderful. Yeah, we caught it. Yeah, blit. And now we can see the precise artillery strikes that the Ukrainians pull off to really maximize the effect on the Russians without wasting a lot of ammo. It appears that the Russians are now running around with a little bit of extra speed now that the house is being peppered by shrapnel. Now see the Russians filing out and moving on along. And we can now see a direct hit on the house. These are a little bit more damaging than nearby hits, in case you all didn't know. And so with that, that's the end of the clip, but it looks like the Russians might be not doing well. We're now moving on into the next clip of news, further down in Soledar, where we saw the Russians get hit again. This time with wait a minute, hang on. Wait. What the hell? We couldn't get out of it. Like, did you see that? Like, the little bar wasn't popping up or anything. Also, there's no audio to this, although there's subtitles, which is really interesting.
I hear something in the background.
I don't hear anything, so I'll just read it off. You'll see what's interesting. What's interesting is that there are 10 more, and they were all clearly walking. I'm walking over here! Walking in one direction at 20 plus in the houses on the outskirts of Soledar, not Solidarity. Clean tourists. Just with weapons. Do you think they made the right choice on that street?
No.
Thank you for being the omnipotent voice, Matthew. They're moving into the green roofed house. They're moving into the green roofed house. I repeat, they're moving into the green roofed house.
The most vibrant roof in the entire city. Let's move into that one.
Already flew in. Faster, faster, faster. The fog is falling in the morning.
What?
We looked at the future. Wait a minute. It's Jaga Jaga. It's him.
I have a feeling these subtitles aren't totally accurate.
We looked at it. There was an anomalous activity of cars, something else. At least 5 worms were being unloaded here on a permanent basis. Either a support point or such a reception for the reception of new arrivals. But it doesn't matter. 10 plus, everyone was crammed. Clearly. Exactly. And one time, at least 25 worms. Now we have they are probably heating the water. It is time to work. Well, what are the thoughts of MLRS? Checkemers, yeah, mimers, la Morales, or doesn't know who the rocket launch systems are. What we're getting little from our partners. But let it to be left of the choice of the representatives of our valiant missile, forces of the armed forces of the... That's what vaporize. Oh,
Western Federation, let's go and bada boom live.
This guy literally said, the Soledar said, forces of the armed forces of the... Boom! And then it just goes nuclear. Russian Federation, let's go in the bada boom. It got that right. From above. Slow down. Bada boom. You're right, Soledar wanted worms. Nuclear explosion again. Jaga jaga.
Please, no more subtitles. I can't handle it.
Oh, we gotta do the course, man. And one serious minus is that the chips flying from some of the scumbags fell apart. The movie will not be incomplete. Oh, something. Exactly, this is how it looks like. 25 white cards winning the lottery at the same time. Bravo, our valiant missile troops, eyes, and sting. while it sits here and there's still a lot of work to do. Next time we'll show. Humor's chamelisnis. That's the end of the clip.
Oh, no.
But to summarize, the Russians got blown away. We're now moving behind the lines to Bakhmut, where we saw that the Wagner soldier had been captured. Uh-oh, Matthew. Schlaf Commandante is a bot.
Wait, who?
This Schlaf Commandante who's going to have to go.
How old are the Enforcer crew? 16 or 17? Oh, you got him.
Yeah, I got him. Oh, you see the Wagner man here. He's very sad. And I gotta say, Pilgrim, we got this guy good. And Stothel said, it looks like Schlaf is a troll. I'd agree. Also, I like how this guy just panned back to the SPG-9 they just had sitting on the side of the road. If the guy resisted, they would have been like, stop resisting! Stop resisting! And then that thing would have made that ringing sound and that guy would have disappeared. But anyways, we're now going to be moving on from this little clip and on into the next one, Pilgrim. On down in the center of the Bakhmut area, where we saw the Sheikh Mansour battalion using a fire extinguisher RPG. So let's take a look at this here, Pilgrim. We can see they've made a warhead out of a fire extinguisher. And it works. Oh. It works.
I think it did.
The epic plot twist of the year, the FPG, the fire extinguisher version of the propelled grenade, works.
Was it propelled by the chemical in the fire extinguisher or something else?
No, it was definitely propelled by the normal RPG propellant. It's just that the warhead was a fire extinguisher. Interesting. It looks like the Russian... I don't think, though, Matthew, that thing's going to be putting out fires. I think it's making them, but still, the thought's there. With that, we're going to be moving on. That's how the Sheikh Mansour battalion, Matthew, is trying to help the Russians put out the fire on their tank as they fired a fire extinguisher RPG at them. Here you go, put it out. Oh, no! And also DF Percussion. Is he trying to do John Wayne? Barely. Anyways, we're moving on to the center of Bakhmut, where we saw that the Freedom of Russia Legion has been spotted again inside of Bakhmut, helping to evacuate citizens. And so here's the clip. We're gonna have to mute it. Paula McDonald said, yeah, not a good John Wayne. No, it's not. I'd agree. It's terrible sounding.
Also, no Moss said, please stop, Joker.
See the Freedom of Russia Legion operating with the Red Cross. See them now coming into the house where these people are living and trying to encourage them to leave. It's a very dangerous place around this area, and it's probably best that they get out of there. DF Prakash said, Senpai noticed me. For that, you're being put in the salt mines. You were being put in for that comment. Never used that word again. Dang it. But anyways, when you see them getting the family out of there, and it's good to know that they are putting in as much effort as possible to try and help out these people, no matter what. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, you got to give a lot of credit to the Freedom of Russia Legion, who's helping out the Red Cross to evacuate people from Bakhmut still. Moving on into the front lines, we also saw some pictures from the Battle of Bakhmut. And I gotta say, these guys look pretty happy. Also, they don't really look that happy. They're in mud and hell, but they're still holding the line, and that's what counts. And so, of course, a huge shout out to the armed forces of Ukraine for continuing on this battle. And with that, we're now moving on into the next bit of news, behind the lines, where we saw some more Russians getting hit again. We can hear Game of Thrones mobile ad music playing. We can also see the Russians moving around still. We can now see the artillery moving down on them. We now see the Russians stop moving around. This artillery is getting them pretty good. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, pretty interesting to see that the Ukrainians were able to barrage the hell out of the Russians in the Bakhmut area again. With that, we're now moving further down the line to see a little bit more of the actual Battle of Bakhmut occurring right on the town. You see them riding on the back of a car. It's sounding kind of hype. We're gonna have to mute it, sadly. I know. When you see them using an RPG, firing it, the backblast was kind of a little rough, you could tell.
Why this guy looked like he was having like a spasm attack in his hand when he was shooting just then.
When you see this guy firing off the back of the car. You see this guy firing a machine gun out a window the best he can. We see the city of Bakhmut in the distance. You see the soldiers here in the building, hanging out, chilling. You see them flying off their drone. You see one guy doing an interesting thing with his hand in the back of that truck. That sounded wrong. We can see this guy inside of a building. Now see these guys firing a small mortar. Now see this guy firing full auto in the building. Hey, no full auto in the building! When you see a fire occurring in one of them, and it looks like they're trying to put it out. Now see a firefight in this building. When you see him moving back. You see this guy firing across an open plaza. Now see them getting in the back of a pickup again. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, nice to see that they're continuing on their little bit in the Bakhmut area. With that, we're now going to be moving on further down into the Opitne area where we saw a little bit of an oops. Just a little bit of an oops. Now this one, Matthew, is going to be pretty freaking funny. But real quick.
Yes.
Got you. I was just having to read something you sent. I had to take a pause there to actually read that. For the first time ever, I actually had to pause to read a message. What we're watching, Matthew, is a perspective of a Ukrainian soldier inside of the back of a car in the Bakhmut area. They're going for a ride from one point to the next, and they're taking a new route. Little do they know that there is a Russian tank right around the corner of this building, and they're about to find it. They survive, and the tank doesn't kill them, though. These guys are in the car. Listen to them. They were just talking casually, and then they saw that Russian tank and heard it fire, and they were like, "Oh crap, we're on the wrong street."
I just realized what was going on. Hell, they should have driven up behind it and threw a grenade down the hatch.
Manny, these guys are literally like, you know, a Disney World ride where you round the corner and disaster struck, and they're like, "Oh crap!" That's literally what this is like. We gotta watch this one more time.
Oh man, I can understand why he was panicked, but they had a perfect opportunity to like sneak up there and throw something in it.
Oh my god. Let's watch this one more time. It's funny because they didn't get hurt. They actually managed to make it out of that situation perfectly fine with no injuries whatsoever. But that's still insane that they just drove somehow in between the Ukrainian line and then through the Russian line and then back through the Russian line and into the Ukrainian one. Oh my god. That's actually crazy. Like, they're like, "Oh my god." That's literally what they're like. Actually, they're saying the F word really, really loudly in Ukrainian. But it's a good thing that they survived that. It was just a scary thing for a moment. I'm sure they actually thought the tank fired at them for a second because they probably didn't have enough time to process what was going on. But luckily, it was looking the other way and probably never even saw them. So with that, we're now going to be moving on. Also, Shane O'Max said, you cannot sneak up on the front of a tank that's already firing at you. If you look at this video, it is clearly looking the other way. You can see the back of the turret right there. It's some kind of a T-80. And you can also see that when it fires right here. Wait, let me go back and show that again. When you see it fire, the explosion is on the other side of the tank. I guess you could say the orange flare. So we know that it's looking the other way, firing that way, and not at them. And I like how the driver of the car, Matthew, just still sounds calm. Like the guy in the back's like, holy hell, there's a tank right there. And the guy up at the front's like, I know, calm down. Like he's just like, hey,
Yes.
man. But anyways, we're going to be moving on from that clip. Good. It's good to know that they survived that, and that'll probably just be a funny story they tell each other. Like, remember that time we just drove right behind a Russian tank? With that, moving on and into the southern front, our only bit of news from here is that a drone was hitting some Russians. And so with that, here's a clip. Mama, mama. That's what, isn't that what Queen said in that song, you know, Bohemian Rhapsody? Mama! But anyway,
Yes, and maybe a slightly different tone.
yeah. And with that,
Crap.
that's the end of the clip. But nice to see that they were able to get him good. With that, we're going to be moving on from that, getting him good. We're now going to be moving even further on down. And also, Matthew, this is something really funny to me. This was funny, all right? Because Stothel said, you don't have a vote here on, you know, what was going on in that clip. I actually showed that, if y'all don't know, I actually have a lot of friends that were either currently serving in, like, branches like the Space Force or priorly served. And one of them was in the Marine Corps. And I actually was talking to him while I was making this news, and I showed him that clip. And he said almost the same things as Matthew, so I think he does have a vote here. Really, anyone has a vote. Why do you got to be rude
also,
like that?
And also, my thing is, if you are in the military, I'm sure you know a lot more than me, but that doesn't exclude other people from having an opinion about it. That's what I've never understood about people that like are gatekeepers of certain things. Like, you're not the military, you can have an opinion. Well, it's not. That's not true.
I'm sorry, everyone. I'm actually going to have to go and delete this entire channel and the entire show now because we can't have an opinion. So with that. And I don't mean to be rude on this one, but that was a really rude comment, not even directed at me, directed at Matthew. Anyone can say really whatever they want. That's the United States, and it's a free country. If that's a problem, then I don't know, you're going to have to get over it or something. With that, we're now going to be moving on down into the Marinka area, where we saw another drone in action, and this is the only news we got from Donetsk today. And we're going to mute that, because that's, wait a minute.
Uh-oh.
Have you ever wanted to find yourself a Ukrainian drone that can deliver the kind of graphics you need to pick up where a Russian is? Well, then you've come to the right place, level. Introducing the all-new Lanka 100 feet. A drone that can pick up Russians at over 60 kilometers away, hitting them with dead-on precision, so that way your artillery knows exactly where it is. I'm going to have to turn that down because I can hardly hear myself. We can see it looking around at the Russians, and you can tell that this is a high-performance system. Looking down directly on the town of Donetsk, there's nothing the Russians can do but quiver, piss their pants, and cry. We can even see them detecting more Russians here around the Donetsk airport. Now I gotta say, this thing is absolutely impressive. We may get content ID'd for this video, but this is Pam Selliot approved. Just take a look at the high fidelity of the camera as they look around the town and pick up all the Russians, wherever they are. Someone said this almost looks like a video game, and I guarantee
it does,
it's
actually.
not. And so with that, that's the end of the video, but I gotta say, if there was any drone that could do that job good, it is that one. The UAV Shark. Make sure to get yours at your local UAV dealer. It comes with a 5-year warranty. And we'll also pull it up here. UAV Shark. Here is the UAV Shark, introducing a all new level of high fidelity. Not only is this named Shark, it also has a shark mouth on it. Absolutely impressive from start to finish, and once again proving that Ukraine is the last word in drone warfare. With that, we're now going to be moving on from this clip and on into the next one, which is actually outside of Donetsk, as there is no other news from this area. The front line is not developed in any way, shape, or form, along with the southern front, and also along with the Kherson front as well. And so we're now going to be moving on into the town of Berdyansk, where we saw that there was an unfortunate incident occurring in between partisans and collaborators today, which occurred at some point. I really have no idea. But one thing that we do know is that there was one toasty collaborator at the end of this entire affair, as we'll see right here. Toasty. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, I gotta say that that is absolutely impressive, and once again showing that the Ukrainian will can never be beaten. With that, we're now going to be moving on to our last bit of news that is inside of Rostov-on-Don. And Matthew, I don't know if you're a big history buff, but did you know at a time the Soviet Union, the United States, and the United Kingdom, where the Queen comes from, now the King, once were allies? Did you know that?
I actually did not.
Well, I'll tell you something. In the Second World War, there was no tighter group of friends than the Three Sisters. You had the Russians with the motherland, you had Britain with the homeland, and also Britannia, which is actually a woman, and then you had Lady of Liberty, or whatever the hell that statue is on top of the Capitol building, and the three of them made up the Allies, at least a large part of them. And back in the day, Winston Churchill's wife actually sent some of the most exquisite hospital beds that were ever to be provided in 1943. Still in that hospital today are the exact same beds. You can see them right here.
Holy moly.
Those beds are over 70 years old at least, and they're still using them.
Don't you think it's about time to upgrade?
I think it's about time to improve the ratings of this hospital and to upgrade it as best as possible, because this is absolutely terrible. I don't really know what that guy's saying in the bottom, but I gotta say, this is something else. Really something, and something that ought to be looked into. And so with that, we're now gonna be moving on from this little clip, and we're gonna be moving out of Russia, because that was our last bit of news, and so it's now time for us to get to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Zelenskyy. And so with that, here is the speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні відбулись ще кілька етапів нашого дипломатичного марафону. Говорив з пані Чапутовою, президенткою Словаччини, детально про нашу оборонну співпрацю і про дипломатичні заходи, які заплановані у нас з європейцями на найближчий час. Дякую Словаччині за підтримку інтересів України і всієї Європи. Провів переговори із прем'єр-міністром Албанії Рамою. Як завжди, почув розуміння наших потреб, розуміння української позиції. Загалом, завдяки переговорам цього тижня нам вдалося суттєво посилити рішучість партнерів збільшувати постачання зброї для України. І максимально працюємо для того, щоб це було відображено у рішеннях чергової зустрічі в форматі «Рамштайн» – зустрічі міністрів оборони, яка відбудеться в другій половині січня. Готуємось також і до участі України в заходах Всесвітнього економічного форуму в Давосі. Цьогоріч традиційна економічна тематика форуму, очевидно, буде поступатися безпековим питанням. І для нас важливо, щоб на кожне питання світу щодо безпеки була ефективна і чітка українська відповідь. Так і буде. Взяв участь у спеціальному урочистому засіданні Литовського Сейму. Литва відзначила День захисників свободи, річницю січневих подій 1991 року, коли люди захистили незалежність своєї держави від намагань тодішньої Москви зберегти контроль над Литвою. І це сьогодні було дуже символічне засідання, дуже емоційне. Я подякував нашим литовським братам за всі їхні дії на підтримку України і нашої боротьби за свободу та за всі їхні слова про героїзм наших людей, які звучали і звучатимуть у Литві. Сьогодні дуже явно відчувалося одне з найбільших наших досягнень за час, що минув після 24 лютого, а саме контекст європейської свободи, контекст цілісності європейського об'єднання просто неможливо тепер уявити без України. Повноцінність Європи – це, зокрема, і повноцінність інтеграції з Україною. Зробимо все, щоб втілити це в конкретних рішеннях європейської спільноти. Звичайно, сьогодні, як і кожного дня, постійно на зв'язку з нашими командувачами, з керівниками розвідки, спеціальних служб. Важка битва за Донеччину триває. Битва за Бахмут і Соледар, за Кремінну, за інші міста і села Сходу нашої держави триває. Хоч ворог і зосередив найбільші свої сили саме на цьому напрямку, наші воїни, Збройні сили України, усі сили оборони і безпеки захищають державу. Я дякую кожному солдату, сержанту, офіцеру бригад та інших армійських підрозділів, які хоробро і стійко виконують поставлені завдання. Я дякую бійцям підрозділу «Кракен» за рішучі дії по знищенню ворога в районі Соледару. Я дякую воїнам Інтернаціонального легіону «Гурмо» і підрозділу «Шаман», які мужньо обороняють Бахмут. 324 дні повномасштабної війни, а як все змінилося для Росії. Вони там вже гризуться між собою за те, кому приписати якесь там тактичне просування. Це чіткий сигнал невдачі для ворога. І це ще один стимул нам усім, щоб більше тиснути на окупанта і щоб завдати ворогу більше втрат. Я дякую усім, хто це забезпечує, як на передовій, так і на всіх інших наших фронтах. Саме тому сьогодні я хочу відзначити також працівників Служби зовнішньої розвідки України, тих, хто працює зазвичай зовсім непомітно і про кого небагато говорять. Але вони реально наближають дуже вагомі рішення партнерів для України, для наших оборонців. Дякую за це. Дякую всьому особовому складу Служби безпеки України, чиї результати в боротьбі, зокрема проти колаборантів і диверсантів, суспільство бачить. Кожен крок держави у національному захисті ретельно готується. І це дає нам законні і справедливі результати. Дає нам реальне посилення нашої незалежності, усіх її аспектів. Я дякую за це. Дякую кожному і кожній, хто працює заради перемоги нашої держави. Слава нашим воїнам! Слава Україні!
And so
Love Ukraine.
that is the end of the speech from President Zelenskyy, and I have to say, absolutely tremendous. He's been able to keep up the ratings for so long. It's been great. It's been impressive. No, he even said nobody can do speeches like me. It's absolutely incredible. Also, I see that a lot of people are saying
That this one is much better than the other one. And I gotta admit with y'all, I absolutely agree.
Dang, I forgot to put Mike Tyson in the poll. Dang it.
There's nothing better than a good Pam Elliott. Because I cannot actually say his name with the letters in the right format because I don't know what kind of trouble we could get into. But one thing I can
Sam Elliott. We can't get any trouble for that.
Well, I think you can if you're saying this is Sam Elliott. But
No, you can't get in trouble for imitating somebody's voice. That's definitely not something.
Steve Lassou said, maybe stop with the voices. Steve, why? I'm just trying to have some fun here. Anyways, with that, I thank you all so much once again for watching this nightly show. If you did enjoy, make sure to hit the subscribe button on your way out, and also make sure to hit that thumbs up, because of course, that helps this channel to keep on running. And without viewers like y'all, the Lee Spring Army cannot grow, and the Lee Spring Army cannot keep marching without viewers like y'all. And so with that, we're about to be moving on into our question segment and answering our polls, all the super chats that have been sent in, and also all of the live chats. But before we do, thank you all so much once again for watching, because tonight has once again been an absolute pleasure. And so with that, we're about to start moving on into our questions. And take us away, Matthew, and let us hear about those polls.
All right. So first up, we have two polls to address. And the very first one said, thinking in terms of Russia, was it worth it to secure Soledar as a propaganda victory? Pretty oddly evenly split poll. 46% said no, it was too costly for Russia. 41% said yes, it will boost morale, etc. And 13% said unsure. Now for me, I'm going to have to go with it was too costly. Because at this point, I don't think there is any fixing their whole morale situation. And I doubt the Russian public, if they already are brainwashed to believe that Russia is winning, they're not going to change their position at all. And the people that think they're losing aren't going to change their mind either. So, Enforcer, what say you?
I would entirely agree with that assessment. I'd personally have to say that I think that the Russians, while securing that town and trying to make it a giant propaganda coup, the losses they've taken are not going to account for the same story. With thousands dead surrounding the fields of Soledar and also hundreds of dead inside of the town itself, there's absolutely no way that the Russians can really equate this to any kind of victory strategically. And so my opinion still stands that Soledar, while finally being taken, was really a defeat for the Russian forces. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And let's get on into the next one.
The next one here was put up due to popular demand. The question is, which impression does the Enforcer do best? It looks like 43% said Sam Elliott, 28% said the Orange Man, excuse me, and 6% said good old dude Corn Pop, and 24% said voices. They were in my head. Surprisingly, quite a few people have the voices in the head. I'm very sorry. But it looks like Sam Elliott is the winner, followed up by Orange Man.
Sam Elliott is the winner, hands down. There's absolutely no way you can beat the smooth, crisp voice of the man who did the Ram commercials. Guts, glory, Ram. So with that, I gotta thank y'all all so much once again for y'all's input. And also, Matthew, I've been seeing a lot of people throwing in 2 other ones that we weren't putting up here on this poll. So if we could run this again, put in the Orange Man and Sam Elliott again, but put in replacement of Corn Pop and voices in my head, put in David Attenborough and Mike Tyson. So that way we can get a better lay of the land. Because Mike Tyson feels the pain, man. I wasn't up on that poll. And I was the original voice, man. I was here first. I'm a warrior inside, man. And you sitting here hurting my feelings, man. You really are. And so with that, I gotta stop for a second for myself. But anyways, we're gonna wait for Matthew to make that poll. And there we go. And now we're going to get on into the next poll.
All right. And also, let's see. Savet and Tiana said, Enforcer Matt, you infected me with your coughs. Sorry. But anyways, let's see here. So while that poll is running, we're going to go ahead and move on to our super chats. Who would have guessed? Wow, a Soviet super chat.
Wow, a Soviet super chat here in the town of Voronezh.
Yes, by the guy there on YouTube who flipped his script a
shell.
little bit.
I call that man the shell. He'll shill for anyone, man. Like you could drop him in the middle of like literally he did drop himself in the middle of Afghanistan. He started shilling for the Taliban. The Taliban are great people. They just happen to kill someone every once in a while, but it's only in love. But anyways, let's hear the first super chat.
Also, by the way, Denny said that he sent an email, by the way.
He did.
And do you want to let anybody know, like maybe just like a slight hint of what is planned on day 365? Because I know we can't reveal what we're actually doing right now, but we can give a slight hint because it's some pretty big planning going on in the background.
Well, Matthew, of course, we can't really disclose the entire plan. It has the highest level of confidentiality and classification that a Lee Spring Army informational document has. But I can say
sounds like it would go good. Sounds like it would go good in your garage next to the Corvette.
I will have to ask the live chat one thing though, Matthew. Speaking about Corvettes and classified documents, have y'all ever watched the Johnny Carson show or the Stephen Colbert show? Y'all ever watched them? Because those are some pretty interesting shows, a lot of people like them. And while they're kind of moving off of the direction of TV, there's a lot of potential for shows like that to exist on a different platform. But I can't really say much. I can't really confirm anything, but anyways, with that, we're on to the next one. I think that's about all we can give right now, Matthew.
Man, that's it?
That's it. We'll probably release a little bit more the closer we get, but that's all I'm gonna give for right now.
Oh man. But anyways, up next we have a $20 super chat from Psyops who says, want to date Andrew or Matt? Get this video to 1 like. Drawing date February 30th. They are up to anything involving anything.
But I thank you for the support, Psyops, and he actually sent this to me as an idea, Matthew, like a blind date with a viewer on February 30th. But I don't know if we would.
Oh no!
I don't know if we'd do that. And also, if I look at my calendar, I can't do that anyways. Because interestingly enough, I will be hanging out with someone celebrating their birthday that day. So, yeah, I couldn't do that anyways. But I do thank you for the support, Saps, and a pretty interesting idea. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
All right. And also, Avari Mendibrata said, Matt, my wife thinks you should impersonate Zap Brannigan from Futurama. I got to say, I'm not very certain, like, who that is, Avari. I'm not familiar. I've heard of Futurama, but I'm not familiar with who that person is. Maybe the Enforcer knows. He's laughing.
No, I love Avari, because Avari will throw in voices, and I'm like, I have no idea who these people are. And, like, Avari has faith in our voice impersonations. Like, he believes in it. Sadly, I don't know who that is either. And that's what I was laughing at. I was like, we don't know who that is either, because I think you were asking for some German guy who was talking about the chickens are very stupid or something like that, like, I think a couple of days ago, if I remember correctly. And I didn't know who that was either. But I do have to thank you for the support of Ari. I don't know if we can do that one, because
Avari didn't put in support, by the way. That was just a comment from the live chat.
Oh.
But LZ X-Ray also said, Matt, what about an impression of Ross Kemp, yeah? Yeah, maybe so. Send him to Louisiana to see the fellows down there in the neighborhood. What was he saying about those guys down there?
I don't really know. I don't really remember.
Yeah,
man. I robbed the grocery store because I don't have food for my family. Man. Give me your money. This is a stick up. Give me your money. What? Yeah, we're robbing you right now. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next super chat goes to Psyops once again, who puts in a $20 donation. It says, let's see here. It says, want to have fun. Ask Enforcer Matt about something that I can't mention. Muhaha, take a question from the chat. And Muhaha, shout out to the Discord crew. And Texas stinks. And he also said something else. I'm not sure what that means, so I'm scared to read it off.
I gotta see here in support stuff. Your super chats are literally always like landmines. Also, Mick just asked Dennis a question, but I think he's been gone for like 40 minutes.
Oh yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. He gone. But anyways, I gotta thank you so much once again for the support, Psyops, and also, I don't really know how to respond to that again, but I do thank you for helping this channel to keep on running and probably giving a lot of people a laugh in the live chat. You've always been one for really good jokes and really interesting jokes. They're still funny in a way. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, good night to JB.
Also, good night to LZ X-Ray. Wait a minute, that's not. Oh, good night to Buddy Smith, I meant to say. I was looking at the wrong one. LZ X-Ray still here. But anyways, up next we have a $20 super chat from not for one, but for all, Ukraine, who says, formerly known as Ultron Prime, if everything goes according to my plan, my LSA boots will be in Ukraine helping in every way. Slava Ukraine, plug Starsky Flashback and Ukraine _TBIC, 23rd Southern Brigade signing off.
And thank you so much for the support. And we've actually plugged all of those channels at one point or another. And I would say Operator Starsky, pretty good channel. Ukraine TBIC sucks. I'm just kidding. He's actually watched one of our videos. He's a really cool guy. He also did like the skincare thing, and it was a hilarious video. I think honestly that was probably one of the funniest ones I've seen come from Bakhmut. And also he seems to be a pretty cool guy. He actually ended up meeting Operator Starsky, Matthew, and interviewing him.
You're kidding.
Yeah, he did. And Matthew's like 30 feet away from the mic right now.
I had to go get a Ricola and the cough starting up again.
but yeah, he actually did. And then the Flashback, he's also a great channel as well. And if y'all want to subscribe to him, there are loads of YouTube channels out there that cover this war, and a decent amount of them are really, really good. And so I would highly recommend subscribing to all of those. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I hope we plugged them fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Santiago Flores, who says, hello, and thanks for putting the poll math. Math. Sam is the voice for the pizza fund. And also, thank you, Santiago, for the pizza fund. And also, math is in the name, but math is not in the brain. So thank you very much.
And I got to thank you so much once again for the support, Santiago Flores, because without support like yours, this channel simply wouldn't be possible. It wouldn't never have taken off the ground without folks like you helping us to keep this thing running behind the scenes. And so I got to thank you so much once again, not only for supporting the pizza fund, but making sure we got those horses in the back. Horse tack is attached.
Oh, no. Cringe,
Painted
cringe,
matty
cringe.
black. Got the boots that's black to match. Riding on my horse. You get off that porch. I know that's like lame, but like that's like the most recent thing he did was that commercial. The Super Bowl. But I still got to thank you so much once again for the support, Santiago, because you've helped out this channel a great deal in keeping us running. And if it wasn't for viewers like you, this channel would have never been possible. It still wouldn't be possible to this day. And I've got to thank you all so much for sticking the course with us the whole time. And it's really blown us away with how much y'all supported us after Christmas and New Year's, because we thought, I was like, people, of course, spend the most on Christmas, and it's like, I feel like we wouldn't be one of those priorities, yet we've still ended up being a priority for y'all, and I gotta thank y'all so much for that, because y'all have helped this channel to keep on surviving, even at times when I thought it would get really rough. So with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, Santiago, and thank you for being an old guard in the Sleeve Spring Army and helping this thing to keep on rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And Super Action General said, say bussin' and no cap in Sam's voice.
Man.
Well, that's unequivocally bussin' and no cap.
I've got to tell you, out there on the range, when you eat those grits and biscuits, they're unequivocally bussin'. In fact, I would say that they're some of the best biscuits and beans that you'll ever eat in your lifetime. These biscuits and beans come from none other than Bush's Baked Beans. You can find Bush's Baked Beans in your local general store, but the best way to find them is out in the field as a cowboy is cooking up a hot cup of joe and he's cracking open that can with a little simple can opener, the kinds you find in the dollar store. And of course, I gotta thank you so much once again for making that request, and I hope you enjoy me saying that that was unequivocally bussin', no cap. And so with that, we're gonna be moving on to the next one. And I got to thank you so much once again for helping this thing to keep on running, no cap. And with that, we're on to the next one, because I know the next one is unequivocally fire and bussin'.
All right. So the next one here goes to Psyops once again. He puts in another $20 donation. Psyops is going bonkers once again with the donations, and we appreciate it very much. Also, we appreciate you being a mod too, because he's a moderator. Psyops says, take a question from Carta. Muhaha, no pressure, Carta.
And I'm going to make sure to get a question from Carta, and I got to thank you so much once again for the support. And so with that, let's get the question from Carta.
All right, and luckily I did go ahead and set up that question from Carta. I got it earlier. So it's in the top of the spreadsheet, but real quick, let me grab this little super chat and also this live chat here. There we go. And the question from Carta says, is there any chance that Ukraine left mines in the salt tunnels as a fun surprise for orcs?
I cannot confirm nor deny, Carta, that the mines were left behind in that salt mine, but one thing I'll tell you is that it's going to be looking like the Morton Salt Building down there when those mines go off. That thing's going to be collapsing, and a lot of Russians are going to be buried under the exact same salt that they exude under every single day under the sun. And so with that, I hope that addresses your question, Carta, fairly well, and I gotta thank you so much once again for being a Lee Spring Army soldier and also helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for folks like y'all, this would have never been possible. And so with that, we're on to the next one while No Moss says this is disturbing. And I gotta tell you something, that's disturbing. That really is.
I gotta tell you, I'm gonna have to hop in here real quick. You're the disturbing one. There's a lot of content in that face.
I'm just kidding with you, man. Don't take that personally. I had to take
man. We don't even see their face, though.
Yeah, but like every once in a while you'll make a joke and it's like, totally like harmless. It's like, hey, I'm just making a joke. And then somebody be like, like freak out. But don't freak out, man. It's just a joke. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And also, I just got to say, I'm feeling really hyped for day 365. I'm not about to say any secrets or anything like that, but now that we have potentially Denny's on board as well, This might be the wildest day of the stream on day 365.
I'm going to say this. I think we have just about everyone on YouTube.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe more than that too. So we'll see in the end. But this could be the most legendary moment for Ukraine on YouTube, maybe, because everybody might be involved. But anyways, real quick, I saw a live chat question from Jonathan Gulliman, who said, "How come you and the mainstream media have a completely different outlook on the current situation? Very positive, as opposed to General Douglas McGregor. He paints a very dark picture for Ukraine. What say you about the difference?"
The difference is that I've always had a positive outlook. They never have. And I've always been right, and they've almost always been wrong. And, you know, I'm not trying to sit here and sound like I know it all and everything, because I definitely don't. I get a lot of stuff wrong, and y'all sometimes see that happen live. But they've never been right on anything. They thought the country was going to collapse in 3 days to a week. They were very pessimistic about the opening of the war. They've always been pessimistic. Even when the entire northeastern area collapsed and the Ukrainians retook it, they said, oh, now the Russians are really going to steamroll them from the south and east. And they never did. And that's why there's a total disconnect, because I'm looking at it from an actual strategic situation. They're looking at it from an emotional situation, because in their mind, if there is any loss whatsoever, no matter the significance, it is a massive loss that will never be recovered and no one will ever be able to forget. So that is why there's a massive disconnect. And you know, I don't mean to sit there and always say that they're wrong, but they almost always are. You know, like, hell, I even point out stuff before it happens sometimes, like what happened in Kyiv and Kharkiv, and it turned out to be that way. And meanwhile, they were sitting there saying something totally different. And if I went off of what the mainstream news says, why is anyone even watching? You know, y'all are coming here to try and get a level of fidelity and information that the mainstream news isn't providing. Also, some laughs and everything else in between. And if I was to sit there and repeat exactly what the mainstream news was saying, what makes this channel special? You know, I'm not taking an opposite side from the mainstream news just to be special either, but if I just try to repeat all of their talking points, what am I really doing? I'm not even being original, and I'm not even staying true to what my own ideas and thoughts are on the situation. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, somebody's been begging for us to do it, to imitate, what's his name? Rocky. So, yo, Adrian, I did it!
Hey, yo, Paulie. What are we doing out here with the whole boxing thing, huh?
Oh, listen, Rocky, you just gotta hit him.
Listen, man, I got a lot of brain damage up here in the noggin, man. Like, I don't know if I can hit him, really, you know what I mean?
Well, come on, man, you can do it. You can do it, Rocky.
All right, Paulie. I'll get up there and I'll do it, but I'm probably going to take a lot of brain damage from it.
A lot.
And then he gets done with the fight. Yo, Adrian, I did it. I hope you like that. CME4PC said, not bad at all. Now you.
He was talking about mine, by the way.
Oh, okay. All right then. I get no respect around here. I came home the other day and my wife said, I have a bath bomb for you. She gave me a toaster. I sat down and I went to my therapist the other day and I said, I have a story to tell you. He said, make it turn and jump. I get no respect around here. No respect at all. But anyways, let's get on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Beta Waves NY, who puts in a $50 donation and says, I'm in space.
I'm in space.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I don't really know.
Now, I've heard that before, and hopefully I don't take this badly. I've heard people say that when they're high, but I don't know if that applies to you or not.
Bro, I'm in space, bro.
Yes.
Have you seen that Scooby-Doo thing where it's like, oh, this is really purple, extra sticky, like all that stuff?
What? No, I've never seen
Oh,
this.
okay. Yeah, I'll have to show that to you after the stream. It's hilarious, though. It's a funny meme about, like, Shaggy doing, like, weed in the parking lot or something like that. But anyways, we're on. Everyone's like, what the hell are you watching? I don't even know either.
Yeah, really, what are you watching?
Also, there were a lot of people are actually saying that they like Rocky.
That's crazy. I wouldn't have expected Rocky to be the most popular one.
Yeah. That's crazy. Like, put up a new poll. Like, also, let's go over this one real quick, and then we will put up a new poll with Rocky in it and see how much people like that one. But
and Beta Waves NY said AFK man, so I guess that means they were away from keyboard.
AFK, man. Like, I gotta tell you, man. It's fine, man. It's fine. But with that, let's go over this poll.
And the poll impression best. It looks like 38% said Sam Elliott once again, 26% said Orange Man, 14% said Mike Tyson, and 22% said David Attenborough.
So the results are a little bit more fair in this one. They're getting kind of close, actually, compared to the last one. It seems as though David Attenborough, surprisingly, although a lot of people really wanted that one up here, and a load of people wanted Mike Tyson on the poll, not a lot of people voted for Mike Tyson. He's actually the very bottom.
That's crazy. Mike Tyson, that would not fly.
All right, so let's take the winner of that one, Sam Elliott, and let's put him up against Rocky Balboa, or Sylvester Stallone, either way you want to call it, because it's really just... And let's see, we'll put Orange Man back up there again, so we got 3 options there, and then the fourth one, and let me see who said it. The fourth one will be Rodney Dangerfield, because I did 2 of those at the same time. So put those up, and then we'll see what the results are from there, and then the top 2 will move on to the next round, I guess, if we can come up with more voices. But everyone's asking...
And the last option was Rodney Dangerman?
Dangerfield.
Dangerfield?
Yeah, he's the guy who goes, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I get no respect around here. You know, he's that guy. I donated blood yesterday, and the family walked up to me and thanked me for saving that dog. I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I wake up every morning and I got a heaviness on me, and sometimes I talk to it and I go, hi, heaviness. And the heaviness goes, oh, you're going to get it real good today, aren't you? But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next one is going to go to PsyOps once again, who puts in another $20 donation. It says, it's your turn, Paula McDonald. Muhahaha. And I'm not sure what turn it is for what, but PsyOps says it's your turn.
And he says it's your turn, you know what I mean? You gotta do what you gotta do, you know?
But with that, someone said do Joe Pesci. I can't do Joe Pesci. I mean, like, I'll try, but anyways, I thank you so much for the support, PsyOps, and apparently...
You can't do Joe Pesci without cussing.
Yeah, you can't do some of them without cussing, you know, because it's just a part of their thing, their shtick, but I thank you so much once again for the support, PsyOps, and apparently, Paula, it's your turn now. It's on you. No pressure or anything, but we're calling you out in front of 3,260 people. It's on you. I don't even know what the hell's on you, but it is. But anyways, so that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to Super Bunker 9000, NAFO, who puts in a $20 donation and says, I'm late, but I'm here. Slava Ukraine, Slava Heroum, and question, please.
Hey, what do you know? Super Bunker 9000's in here. I get no respect, I tell you. I get no respect. I went to NAFO the other day, and I sat there and said, hey, what's going on around here? And everybody said, oh, it's that guy, huh? But I gotta thank you so much once again for the support. It really means a lot to me. It means a lot to me, because I get no respect around here. And that support shows me that I get at least a little bit of respect for the plight I'm in. But thank you so much once again for the support, you know. But with that, we're on to the next one. Better late than never, you know what I mean? I sat there and I showed up to work late. And I said, hey, boss, I'm sorry I'm late. And he said, I wish you weren't here at all. I'm telling you, I get no respect around here.
But anyways, we're on to the next one. That one's honestly the goofiest one.
Yes, indeed.
And Matthew's like, that was stupid. Matthew hates all of them, I think. Like, secretly, I don't know. But with that, we're on.
I like the Orange Man one, because the Orange Man is, like, endlessly hilarious. You know, unless he's doing something dangerous. But anyways, moving on to our next one, we have a $20 super chat from BC Skyman, as well as a $20 super chat from William Arrington, and we thank you both.
Thank you very much.
We thank you both. We thank you both very, very much for the support. BC is a legend. William is also a legend. They've both been around for a very, very long time. It's really crazy how long they've been around, but thank you so much. Also, Backyard Racing said these impressions are killing me.
He's verified.
It's good to know.
I was like, what? I saw that, Matthew. I was like, he's verified. I was like, what? Hang on. Let me pull
every verified person that comes on the channel, we have to pull them up to find out who were being commented on.
Yeah, because I think I've actually heard of you before. Like, you know, wouldn't that be crazy if, like, a giant channel? Wow, actually, this is a fairly big channel. They do, like, a lot of Hot Wheels stuff. Like, they got
Hot Wheels?
Yeah, they do a load of Hot Wheels stuff. I'll actually show your channel on here now that you're, like, here. But this is his thing.
Oh, wow.
Like, I think I've actually seen this. Oh, like, like maybe like several years ago or something. Actually, it would have been a year ago, and I think I just like saw one of them in passing. But I actually remember your channel, man. That's wild. But what
videos real quick?
Say what?
Click on the videos real quick.
Oh, hang on. I don't want to get copyrighted or anything. I'm just kidding. We'll show one of them.
No, not the video. Like the videos tab.
Oh, the videos tab. He's got 6 videos.
How do you get all these tracks?
Dude, he got
this is insane.
121,000 subscribers. All of these videos, each one was getting millions of views. This guy was really onto something. I think you need to get back into this, man, because not only were they cool, because I remember seeing, I think it was the 8-minute long one right here. Not only were they kind of cool, but they were also really, really up there. I mean, like, people really like this stuff. But with that, I hope that addresses it. And thank you so much for enjoying the voice impersonations. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Right. And also, once again, BC and William, thank you very much for the support. And unfortunately, I'm not sure if you ever commented on that.
And I do thank you for the support. It does help us out a great deal. And without you, it wouldn't be possible. And so with that, we're going to be moving on to the next one. And thank you so much once again. And also, Matthew, I like how that guy said we're propaganda, but tonight I said, you know, there's some shortcomings in the Kreminna area, and also the Ukrainians did lose Soledar, but, you know, they're just setting up a second line of defense. It's not a major deal. So he goes, you're propaganda. Oh, shut the hell up. Anyways, we're on to the next one.
The bots are out in force tonight. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm seeing some, like, people going, like, bonkers tonight. It's really something. But anyways, up next, we have a $20 super chat from Marion Deemert, who's also been around for a very, very long time. Marion, thank you very much for the support. Sadly, no comment to address, but like always, and we say it every single time, we appreciate it. Enforcer, what say you now?
And I gotta thank you for the support. You didn't throw in a comment, but you did throw in the support, and that helps us to keep this thing going. And so I gotta thank you so much once again, because if it wasn't for viewers like you, we wouldn't be able to do this thing, and we wouldn't be able to make any comments at all. And so with that, we're gonna be moving on to the next one. And also, Backyard Races is asking for us to play one of his videos, actually. So I feel like we can't get content ID'd for this. I don't think we can, because if we do, he'll be like, hey, I asked him to. But let's pull this up, Matthew. Backyard Racing. We're going to the water park. So let's see here. The Hot Wheels Aqua Park. Now, I don't know if this is copyright free. That scares the hell out of me. You know what I mean? But we can see this thing flying through the tracks. Holy moly, man. This thing was intricate. Like, how long did this take you to make, man? Like, goodness.
Dang. He even has the billboard and everything.
Yeah, like, oh my god.
There's water flowing through it, too. What the heck?
This is insane.
Oh, and also Backyard Racing watches nightly, apparently.
Oh, cool. It's crazy to know the people who watch this channel. Oh, look at the dog.
Oh, dog's in it,
the
too.
Dog. I love the dog. That was a pretty dog, man. I love that dog.
Even Buzz Lightyear.
Someone's about to say, I thought this was a Ukraine war channel. Yeah, it is. Listen, for the money you're paying to be here, this is good. I'm going to turn into Don Rickles, Matthew.
Yes. I actually didn't care for Don Rickles at all. The guy was kind of annoying.
Dude, I liked him. I thought he was funny. That ought to be a poll. Put that up as a poll. Did you like Don Rickles, yes or no?
This is the most insane Hot Wheels
nuts,
track I've
man.
ever seen. I think Mark Rober puts together Hot Wheels tracks, and they don't even compare to those.
No, it doesn't. Man, I'm telling you, man. You need to get back into this. You're on to something, Backyard Racing. And it looks like your last video was a couple of months ago. Do not lose passion for this, because apparently you've got a thing to do this. It looks really cool. I mean, it doesn't just look cool. This is cool. You ought to do this, man. Like, this is great. Matthew, this is the average supply route that a Russian logistics truck has to take to the front line every day.
Yes.
That's why it takes
Except
so
it only
much.
makes it past the first segment of track, and then it blows up.
This is just insane, and everyone can't believe this, man. Like, if there's any point to have a renaissance for your channel, I think it's now, because a lot of people are seeing it fresh. Oh my god, it's just not ending. It's crazy, and like this little car is just moving along from the flow of the water in some places. This is nuts, really.
He said it took him 2 months. That is crazy.
And him and his little brother did it. Funnily enough, me and Matthew are also brothers too. Matthew does part of the work on this channel. I do the other part. And That's actually really cool. And I gotta tell you, man, the work really paid off in the amount people enjoyed this. Getting 7.4 million views on like your third or fourth video, like that's impossible, man, for most people.
Wait. Oh, I got like a technical question I'm really curious about. How is it being recorded? Is it a GoPro? Because like surely that would be too big for the car. Like even a GoPro session would be too big. Like what kind of camera is this?
I wonder.
It has to be waterproof as well.
2 months to build. That's insane. 60 days to make this thing. And I mean, it really paid off. This is just fun to watch. Really. I mean, like, you know, and I'm not really that big into model cars or anything, but he's really making this something cool.
This guy, Backyard Racing has to make a YouTube short of this. And this would be like something that could go viral.
You know, wouldn't that be cool, Matthew, if we could get, like, some of the big YouTube channels on, like Mark Rover or something like that? You know, just for, like, Ukraine fundraising thing?
He wouldn't get involved in something, I don't think, with that, because it has to do with war. He likes to keep his image really squeaky clean.
Yeah, he does a really good job at it. He's got a great channel with good content, too. And we see it getting pulled up again, and now it's at the finish line, I think. And it is. That's crazy, man. Oh, he said they'll be back in a couple of months.
Oh, good.
Good. I want to see more of this, honestly. This is super cool. And so with that, I hope you enjoyed watching that video. I hope everyone enjoyed watching that video. And let's get on into the next question.
All right, and the next one goes to Sean Tiz, who puts in a $20 donation and says, I saw a video featuring our friend, Jaga Jaga Igor Puffman, and he dropped another great burn on the orcs. When a BTR and ammo were destroyed, he said, the Pope has elected, referring to the white smoke after the hit.
Oh, that's actually a pretty good one. And I got to thank you so much for the support and sharing that with us. And apparently, it seems as though a lot of people are saying that the Jaga Jaga and Igor, man, are the same. And I'm still trying to get in touch with the Ukrainian soldier that's from his unit. And we're going to see about getting the shirts over there to them soon. Because I think that would be epic. I think that'll be super cool. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Psyops once again, who says, get to the real question. Would you date a viewer? And he says, muhaha, about 50 times.
And I thank you for the support, Psyops. But to be honest, I don't think I would, because it starts to make things a little weird, you know, running the channel. And also I'm sure that a lot of viewers are probably not from Alabama, so it would be kind of like a deal where you just talk to them on, like, the phone or something.
Uh-oh, the jokes are about to roll in.
Yeah, but anyways.
The jokes are rolling in.
But anyways, with that, I hope that answers the question as best I can, Psyops. And thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one. I guess Psyops got what he wanted on that one. I'm sure the comments are, oh yeah, you crushed my dreams! Oh, they're crying. Oh, don't cry. But with that, hey, on the bright note though, if y'all can stalk me down in real life, I'll call the cops. But anyways, that we're on to the next one.
Oh, keeping it real. But anyways, the next one we have is a $20 super chat from Heather in New Hampshire, who says, Slava Ukraine, and please take a live chat question. Great stream as always, both of you, and thanks to Loose Spring Army, y'all rock, and yeah!
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying the Loose Spring Army. Y'all have been helping us to keep this thing going for a while. And I just gotta thank y'all so much once again for keeping this thing going. And so with that, we will get to the live chat, and thank you so much once again. Now, real quick, I've actually seen some questions here about the whole dating thing. Miss Disa said, how would you know if someone you met was also a viewer? Usually because they tell me right off the bat. They're like, hey, I watch your channel. I love it. And then I'm like, oh, cool. You know, it's like, that's neat. Actually, Jay Bagwell and his family are the only ones I've met in real life. So they were like immediately like, your secret safe was us. We know who you are. And I was like, oh. But then they turned out to be super cool. And then someone said, viewer? No way. Subscriber? Yes. Yeah, if you subscribe, you can get a date with Matthew. We'll be running a raffle on that.
Every single night of the stream could be considered a date, I guess you could say. It's just a different type.
Maybe. And so with that, Also, the arrow's like a broken heart. LMAO. Unsubscribe. Paula McDonald said unsubscribe. So you're telling me you're just here for the possibility of a date? What? Huh. Matthew, you're going to have to take over on this whole thing. We're going to have to start scheduling you out. We're going to call me now instead of the Commander General of the Lee Spring Army or whatever the hell my title is. We're going to call me Le Pimp, and we're going to get you on out there. So with that, we're going to move
It's
on.
too much. I can't take it. But anyways, Paula McDonald said nope.
Oh,
She's
okay.
lying.
She lying.
But anyway, but anyways, I also saw somebody say, let's see here. Dang it, where'd it go? Oh, yeah, Sazabi put it out there. I knew it was coming. Did you see that comment?
Let's
I
see.
thought Alabamian only date cousin.
Oh, let me get my cousin and dear wife. That's it. No, we don't actually do that in Alabama. I don't know anyone who does that. In fact, the highest rate of incest found in the United States is actually in New York State, if y'all didn't know. Which is kind of funny because they're always the one joking on everyone else about that, but they're the ones with a real problem. So with that, we're on to the next one.
And also, Chris said, I thought Starsky was going to hook you up with some Ukrainian date.
I still remember. I still remember when he said that, man. He was sitting there like, well, Ukrainian women are very pretty, but they use that to their advantage. And
that killed me when he said that. I was trying to hold back laughing, but it was too funny.
Next time we have Starsky on, Matthew, I must have him say, disregard women, acquire currency. Like, I have to have him say that because I think it'd be funny. But with that, we're on to the next one. Yeah, I guess he wasn't at all. But with that, on to the next one.
And also, Enforcer for President said that they wanted to help with the shirts that you're talking about sending to the commander of the Igor unit. Enforcer for President, I did forward that over to the Enforcer. So I'm not really sure when he plans on sending them, but he does know. So Enforcer, would you like to answer the request for comment?
And I will. Enforcer for President, I got to thank you so much for the offer. But on this one thing, I want to make sure that we do it entirely just as the Enforcer, because y'all have helped us out with a great deal, and y'all help us to keep this channel running every day, and I couldn't ask y'all to do something like this as well to help us to give out gifts, because then at that point, it kind of feels wrong to me on a level, and I feel like we should, well, I should get them for them, because I've been covering the news about them and helping them out a whole load, and I consider it a huge thing that I'm invested into, and I would like to make sure that we can get the shirts for them and send them over there without having to make it a worry of the viewers. And so I do thank you, though, so much, because that is an incredibly kind thing that you've offered to help out with the shirts, and I think we've actually gotten an offer from if I'm correct, Duncan VR to do the same thing. But I
don't think it was Duncan. I think it was Enforcer for President, and it was also, I have it over here in my list of chats on Discord, but I can't remember off the bat.
But I think someone else has. I'm not sure if it's Duncan VR now, because Matthew said it wasn't. But I got to thank you all, though, for the offer to help. And oh, wait a minute, it was PsyOps, actually. Yeah, it was PsyOps. But anyways, I'm gonna make sure to do this one on my own and make sure to show that we do thank them so much for what they're doing. I don't want y'all to feel burdened to help out with this giving of a gift. And hopefully something neat will come out of it. I was thinking it would probably be really cool, and this is something, Matthew, just for you and me, you know, and I was thinking this would be pretty neat, you know, for the future, if they could possibly get a Ukrainian flag and have some guys from the unit sign it and send it back to us.
That would be pretty cool, actually.
That would be pretty cool. I was thinking that would probably be the neatest thing we could get. And so with that, you know, I thank you so much once again, Enforcer for President, for the offer. And also thank you so much for helping us out so much so far and helping this thing to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the offer, though, because that is incredibly kind of you.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from PsyOps, who says, a day 365, PsyOps will be a co-host. Muhaha, Texas run. Ha ha ha. Oh, Texas run. Like, he means literally.
Texas run. It just starts running. But still, thank you so much for the support. And also, maybe, we're not ruling anything out, but maybe. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Michael Terrasi, who says, looks like the clean tourist used the exit at, and he gives coordinates.
They were
would
long.
love.
They were really long.
He is. They would have loved to hear a live chat question.
I know they would have. And sadly, they're not here for one. So we're on to the next. I'm just kidding. We will get a live chat. And thank you so much once again for the support. And it looks like they did take the door out. And let's get that live chat.
And the live chat question is going to go to Mad Machine, who says, do you think the orc war machine is about to stall?
I would say it probably is, especially considering what Putin said today. That appears to be something indicating that there is a serious lag somewhere inside of Russia with the war industry, and it's not doing anything. It's completely stopped ever since the beginning of the war. And so with that, I hope that answers the question the best we can. And thank you so much once again for the support. Also, Matthew, I saw the Ukester say something that really hurt me, actually. He said, then auction off the flag and donate to charity. And that is a cool idea. Oh. That is a cool idea, but I think if we can get this all done before the 365th day, y'all will see what it will probably be used for, and I think y'all will find that pretty neat. That is a cool idea, though. That is actually a pretty neat idea, and I'll see about doing something about that if we can. But I was wanting to see if we could get the flag for Matthew and me, which honestly sounds kind of selfish, but that would just be really cool. That would
put it in the background of something.
Oh, Matthew, come on! Now you're giving away too much. But
nobody knows what that means.
Yeah, they do. Like they're smart. They can connect the dots in between the last thing I said and what you said now. Damn.
You had to be a mind reader to connect the dots on that.
And also, Enforcement President said, "But we are a team. We can donate money." Okay, so that is kind of true, and I have seen some people giving a little bit of pushback, and they're like, "It's an LSA thing." So we'll throw up a poll, Matthew, because the voice poll, it just is what it is. We don't even have to cover it. Throw up a poll and see if people want to support the shirt fund. And yes or no.
You were taking care of that.
I know, I did, but it seems like we're getting a little bit of pushback. And if people in the LSA want to get involved and they're really adamant on it, I won't have an objection to it. We'll just work with the flow. And if they want to get involved, they can get involved. I'm not going to stop them. But with that, we are going to be moving on into the next one.
All right. Excuse me. Up next, we have a $20 super chat from BC Skyman, who says, Mike Tyson is going to be angry and bite some ears.
And I got to tell you something. Mike Tyson is so freaking angry. It's hurting me, man. It's really killing me, man. Because I'm a warrior. I'm a fighter. And I know what I am today, and I'm just not what I used to be. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we're going to be moving on to the next one before I get too angry. I'm going to kill somebody.
And I'm just kidding. For legal reasons, I'm just kidding. But with that...
Allegedly.
And also...
Well, no, seriously on that one, actually. Seriously.
Yeah, seriously. Because someone's about to call up something and say, they're doing it! And then we're going to have some problems. But let's see. Try and Take Alaska said something really smart, man. They said, get 2 flags. And yeah... let's get 2, maybe. And then Pitcam said, you guys deserve the flag. And, I don't want to feel like, I don't want to say that, but I would love one. Like, I would really just love one to have. Because I think that would be cool. But that is a smart idea from Trying to Take Alaska to get 2 of them, so that way we can keep one, and then we can auction one off. And I think that'd be great. That's a really smart idea. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And, oh, goodness. But anyways, also Paula McDonald, I didn't see the question, but if you could send it to me, I will ask it in honor of PsyOps because he did request it. But up next, Paula McDonald said in text, yes. I didn't see it. Try resending it one more time and make sure to tag @EnforcerMatt with no space. But anyways, up next, we have a $20 super chat from Avari Mandubratis, who says, improv skit. Sam Elliott in a skydiving plane trying to coax Orangeman, Bernie, and a character Matt chooses to jump out of the plane. Can either of you do Arlie Ermy?
I don't know if I can. I don't really know. I would have to try.
You have to cuss to do him as well.
Yeah, you kind of do. Missionary, I can't do it. I can't. That was my first attempt. That wasn't good. So sadly, I cannot do Arlie Ermy. I don't think Matthew can either. But what is your character of choice, Matthew?
SpongeBob.
Why do you have to pick a hard one? Pick another one.
Okay. The next one. Let's see. Hold on. Let me think. I gotta make it a good one. Can they be political?
Yes, they can.
Governor Ivy.
Oh, pick another one. Okay, I'll
What the
try.
hell?
I'll try. All right, I'll try. All right, so now listen here, Mr. Trump. You got to jump out of this freaking airplane if you want to get down to the ground. We're not landing until you jump out.
Let me tell you something, white mustache man. I don't really appreciate your tone. And first off, I'm kind of scared of heights. I get a private jet. It's a beautiful private jet. You can get Enforcer NFT trade. Donald Trump trade cards for $99.99 online. It helps me to keep the plane flying. But moving on from that, I gotta tell you, I'm a little too scared, Sam.
And I gotta agree. We don't really agree on much up in here, but I'm scared of heights, and I do not want to jump out of this airplane.
Listen here, both of y'all. Y'all got to jump out of this plane. Now, I'm going with y'all. You can back yourselves up and count on me to help y'all through.
I have to sign in from the back, and I don't necessarily agree with jumping out the plane.
Now, listen here, you are just kind of annoying. I'm just going to be honest. You're just kind of annoying sounding. But moving on from that, you got.
Also, we have Governor Ivy in the chat, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it says, I'm flattered, y'all.
Really?
It's a fake one, obviously, not the real one.
I was about to be like, oh, dang. I was like, I was taking the piss out of her, and she's here. That right there makes it really hard to take the piss out of someone, because you can when you don't think they're around, and then when they're here, you're like, oh, dang, because while I make jokes on everyone's expense in the political field, then you're like, oh crap, it's like. It's like, now I feel rude. It doesn't matter who they are, because I'm an apolitical person. I just treat everyone the same. It's like, damn, now I feel rude.
Well, I think it's a mighty fine impression myself, and now I got to go to the hairdresser and try to get my hair fixed.
Well, I've got to say, that's a mighty fine impression. And I got to get to the hairdresser, so I got to thank you. I got to jump out of this airplane, so I'm going to go. I'll see y'all around.
All right, so we got the first one out of the plane. Now it's just the two of y'all left.
Listen, the top 1% of this country owns half of this country's bravery. And I'm not one of them. I'm not jumping out of this plane. You're going to have to crash it to make me get back down to the ground.
Listen, I got to back him up on this one. Not only are my Trump steaks completely raw, and I got to tell you, I'm looking down there, and their loins, their tender loins, and they're not looking that good. They're not looking that great. They look worse than Elizabeth Warren. They look terrible. So I gotta tell y'all, I just can't jump out. It's gonna be terrible.
All right, then I'm going to pull out a revolver, and the first one that jumps out is the one that's going to live.
All right, see ya, Bernie.
Oh, crap, now you left me. Anyways, I hope that appeased you. And thank you so much once again for the support. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And also, let's see here. I'm trying to look through the live chat because interesting stuff is going on.
Oh, and also I saw I'll Never Sleep say, Enforcer Matt, mail received. And I have to say this, that if we ever receive mail, and we honestly need to get a P.O. box, but if we ever receive mail, it will be met with suspicion. And that's not said as a bad thing, but since we do talk about people that are unfriendly, to say the least, the Russians, we have to be very careful about what we receive and open in the mail, because we don't want to get a surprise. So please don't send anything to our address if you do have it, because it will have to be, I guess, cautiously dealt with, and might cause a scare.
We can't really. I don't want to go into what we did to that mail, specifically, because that's kind of an OPSEC thing. Because if there are people who wish us poorly, they'll use that to their advantage. But we treated that mail like a bomb.
Like it was contaminated.
Yeah, we treated that mail like it was a potential explosive, and we're taking as many precautions as we could opening it. So, with that, also, Roger Ranch just said Ukrainians liberated Kreminna. What?
What?
Hang on, let me go to the map real quick and let's check. Not according to Deep State UA. Let's see. The Kreminna news. Battle near Kreminna through ISIS special operations. It doesn't appear that it's been taken. No one's really reporting that. And we don't see that on Deep State UA either. So unfortunately, we can't really confirm that right now. But with that, how many super chats do we have left, man, to make sure we're keeping on track here?
So we probably need to jump back into them because we have like 20 left.
Yeah, and that's what I've been wondering, man. Because you keep on like rabbit holing. I'm like, don't we have like questions to answer? So with that, we're on to the next one.
Wait a minute. Are you the king of rabbit hole? You're telling me that I'm rabbit holing?
Well, yeah, because I understand. Because usually you're the one trying to usher me onto a schedule, and I'm sitting here like thinking, no, this is kind of just going wherever. I'm like,
well, I don't mean to interrupt, Enforcer, but we really need to get on to the next super chat.
Okay, so with that, we're on to the next one. Matthew's back to normal now.
All right, so the next one is a $15 super chat from Cindy Mitchell, who says, "Send it to the chat."
And we will. Thank you so much for the support. And with that, let's get the live chat. That was pretty straightforward, I would have to say.
And and now we're sending it to the chat. And this question goes to Ronald Schmidt, who says, "Why is Germany dragging its feet on tanks to Ukraine?"
Germany is dragging their feet because they don't want to be looked at as the, I guess you could say, the Nazis of the modern day. They're really scared of their past, in what it led to. And I would have to admit, you know, if you end up killing about 11 million people in camps, I would be pretty scared of my past too. And they're kind of scared of going down that route. And so I kind of understand in a way, but at the same time, in the context we're seeing now, it doesn't really make much sense. But I hope that answers the question the best we can in a very concise way. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again. Also, Matthew, Paula McDonald said blaming his brother. I didn't pull a Putin right there. I didn't pull a Putin. Dang it. I kind of did. Not gonna lie. Anyways, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And the next one we have here is a $15 super chat from Mr. E-Man, who says, Queanian, the town that I live in, is locally known as Struggle Town. It's more than 6 times larger than Soledar. For Russia to consider this to be a great victory is dubious. Take a question from the chat. And also, I think Montgomery was known as Struggle Town as well.
There's a lot of towns that are known as Struggle Town here in America. Let's go through the list. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, Hartford, Providence, Albany, Buffalo. Dang, we're naming off everything. Anyways, I'm just kidding around, everyone. Anyways, thank you for the support. And also, I would say that's true. It's very dubious for them to make it sound like it's a massive victory because it's just a little bit larger than the town we grew up in. But with that, we are going to be moving on into that live chat.
All right. And moving on to the live chat, it goes to, let's see here. That person had to get removed because they went bonkers earlier. So I'm going to have to remove that one from the live chat. This one goes to Duncan VR, who says, "Can the long-range Ukrainian drone make it to Moscow to attack Russian air bases, Navy ships, and other targets?"
The long-range drone probably can. From what we can tell by its range, it should be able to, and be able to drop its ordnance and even fly back. So the answer to that question simply would be yes. They should be able to. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support once again. I thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running while I get hiccups. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support. Also, who went crazy?
It was, let me press the undo button real quick because I eliminated them from the spreadsheet. Let's see. It was Danger Close JTF. He went absolutely bonkers and started like going off on both of us.
Huh.
And he's been around for a while, so, you know, it's one of those moments where you're like, you know, I did not want to have to get rid of them because I was like, why would you go bonkers like that? And you've been around forever. But it's like, at the same time, it's like, you can't let that slide because they're starting to, like, get so insane they're disrupting the chat.
What were they saying? Like, I don't think I was up to date on any of that.
Insults. Bad insults.
Like, could you give a hint as to what it really was?
Can't repeat them.
What if
They're too nasty.
What if I mute our mics for a second? Can you tell me?
We'll talk about it later.
Okay, all right. So with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Raphael Schneeves, who says, "According to history legends, Ukraine's forming 2 new army corps. I was wondering if you would know anything about that, and if it's true, how soon do you think the corps will be ready?"
And I gotta thank you so much for the support. Sadly, we don't know about those corps. We usually don't talk about Ukrainian force strength, size, and training because that's an OPSEC thing. So unfortunately, I can't really comment on it due to us trying to ensure that OPSEC isn't being violated about Ukrainian force numbers and other kinds of things that we consider sensitive. But I do thank you for the support, and I thank you for a pretty good question, but sadly, I can't really confirm or deny anything about it. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much for helping this Lee Spring Army to keep on rolling.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Miss Disa, who says, what do you know about Russia repositioning ships in the Black Sea?
And we don't really know a lot about the Russians repositioning ships in the Black Sea either. A lot of the Black Sea fleet's information about their fleet movements is not really known at all. We don't know where they are. We know that some of them are now being based off of Novorossiysk, which is a little is large enough that they could support naval forces a little bit, but not big enough. It's not that big. It's not as extensive as Sevastopol port is. So with that, I hope that answers the question the best we can, because we really don't know a lot about the Russian Navy. Really, no one knows anything about any navies. We just kind of get a general idea of wherever they are. We know that they're in the Black Sea Fleet, but beyond that, we don't have a lot of idea about their fleet movements. And so with that, thank you so much again. I hope we answered the question fairly well. I'm sorry that we actually let you down on that. We can't really get an answer because there's not enough information on it. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And also, Mr. E-Man said the town's name, Queanbeyan, is actually Queen Bee Anne in New South Wales. Mr. E-Man said, the way you butchered my hometown's name. Now, Mr. E-Man, you know this channel is like structured around mispronouncing names, and that one's one of the toughest ones I've ever seen. So you should have known that one was going to get butchered, minced, and sliced like 5 different ways.
Well, there's a town in Australia called Wagga Wagga.
It's called what?
It's called Wagga Wagga.
I see one down there called something else. I don't know if I want to repeat it.
Wait a minute, hang on. Where?
Down one. Left one, up one. Cardina.
What is up with these town names? Like, all these are weird.
Yong Creek.
I live in Little Billabong, bruv. I live in Wollongong, mate. I live in Holbrook. I live in Mountain Creek. Well, that's actually not that weird.
Mountain Brook.
You know, this is what the boogeyman says, Matthew, when he opens up your closet door and attacks you on the bed. He goes, whack, whack, and then he kills you. Oh, man. What's up with the rest of these names? I mean, I'm not trying to rat on, like, Australian towns or anything, but these are weird.
Wait, they have quokkas here, don't they?
No. The quokkas live over here, like, right around this area.
Man. Now, this is the area I like, is this area. I like this area a lot.
Man, like, someone landed on the beach here, and they were like, what shall we name this town? I don't know, man, but the sand here on this beach is busting, so they named it Bustleton. Anyways, we got to move on to the next one. I know we're running out of time.
Yes, well, yeah, we are actually. But up next, we have a $10 super chat from Sick Lid, who says, capturing the largest salt mine, and they put in the emoji of the salt shaker. I didn't know that existed. The salt mines in Europe are the Russians' goal is.
I think they are trying to take the salt mine for the salt alone. Prigozhin is a big fan of the salt mine for some reason. But yes, that is a part of their objective in a way, from what we understand. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep running.
Yes, indeed. And also, Paula McDonald, I did get yours. Sorry about that. I meant to get that one about 3 questions ago. Paula McDonald said, and this one was sponsored by PsyOps, do you think that China is waiting for Russian troop losses and equipment to then move in and take Eastern Russian assets?
No, I don't. Because they would incur administrative costs, and they can just make the Russians an economic puppet and make it much cheaper for them to extract the resources from Russia. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the question. I'm sorry that Matthew missed that on his behalf. I am sorry.
Oh, well, thank you.
But still, they're a pretty good question, and I don't think they will, because usually you just try and extract resources without really having to take over the area. The British actually did that back when the Empire was a thing. A lot of people always look at a map of the British Empire. And let me show one for y'all real quick.
Oh, no. Vague rant case that I cycled over a quokka recently. Come on. These other tough bastards. It lived, hopefully. Vague. Now over here you can hit a squirrel. It's a tragedy when it happens, and you have to have a 5-minute moment of silence after you hit one. But a quokka, I mean, I don't know if you can just drive home after hitting a quokka.
He said they're tough. I don't think they're that tough, man. You probably just severed its spinal cord. Oh man, that poor freaking Quokka. Anyways, a lot of people see a map of the British Empire and they go, "Oh wow, look, that's all controlled by Britain." Interestingly enough, they did something called indirect domain, or I guess you could say like an indirect control. They had claims over these lands, but they would allow the people who pretty much led that area before they were there to still kind of lead it, but with a little bit of British influence if it was ever needed. So they were kind of like puppet countries in a way, but given a decent amount of autonomy. You could see that with the East India Company and also, the Indian princes that kind of existed under British rule during the earlier times of colonial India. But as the East India Company started to exploit the infighting in India to start taking over land and deposing these princes, eventually pretty much the entire royal class of Indian princes and kings and such would go to the wayside as the East India Company grew. That was not the case, though, in a lot of the areas of Africa, like the areas of Sudan and South Sudan, where most of that area was generally just kind of like, hey, this is technically British now, but we'll allow y'all to kind of run this thing on y'all's own. If it's okay with you, we'll just say yes to a couple of things here and there, and we'll let it go. But it wasn't like that everywhere, of course. It was different, and through different times in history, during the British Empire, those things would change drastically. Like Egypt would have a massive change, and it would go from kind of being its own kingdom to being directly controlled by the British government towards the later years of the empire. So while I'm saying this isn't necessarily a true statement for the entirety of the British Empire's history, but through some parts of it, it was. And that's what the Chinese would most likely try and do, is that it would kind of be considered China, but it'd really still be run by Russia in a way, and they would incur all the costs. And that's really the whole point of me pointing out that story. But anyways, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, I do see the bot, by the way, but I'm going to ask this bot a question because I'm curious. But anyways, up next, I have we have a $10 super chat from Try Do, and we also have a $10 super chat from Junebug72. They each leave a $10 super chat, but without a comment. But thank you very much to both of you for that support, and we appreciate it very, very much. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Sick Lid once again.
Yeah!
He says none of our presidents have military experience for over 30 years, and they have lots to say about the military.
And I thank you for the support, and that's true. But I don't think it should be a prerequisite that you have to have military experience to be a president or considered to know what you're talking about. It's really a case by case basis, in my opinion. Because some people know a lot of what they're talking about. Some of the best firearms on Earth were made by people who were not firearms engineers or designers. Like the Garand, the M1 rifle. That was made by a guy who was just a machine shop worker. The Owen gun, the Owen submachine gun that a lot of Australians would probably know, that was made by a farm boy. So you don't have to be a licensed expert in the field to do something really good. You just have to actually have some competence about you. However, of course, talking about current presidents, I can't get political about them. I can't go through the past, though, and go to presidents that didn't have military service and say that they did fairly well. You could say that Theodore Roosevelt, in a way, and let me make sure I'm correct on this. Theodore Roosevelt. Let me make sure I'm right with this. He didn't actually serve in the U.S. military. It was I believe it was some kind of a militia in the state of New York, and then let's see here, his command, okay, so U.S. Army, years of service, New York National Guard in 1882 to 1886, so United States Army, but it's the National Guard, and then he was a colonel of the 1st Volunteer Cavalry in the Spanish-American War, so I'm somewhat not correct on that, but, I was wrong. Anyways, moving on from that, not using Theodore Roosevelt as an example because that's not one, I don't really think that should be a prerequisite. And in my opinion, anyone can say really anything they want about anything. That's why America's America. It wouldn't be America if someone sat there and said, I don't think nuclear power is good. Oh yeah, what are you, a nuclear scientist? Get the hell out of here. And then they couldn't have an opinion because that wouldn't be a democracy. You would just be running a theocracy at that point or something. Or a better word to say is a meritocracy, where you can only talk on something if you're experienced on it. And there's a whole load of gatekeeping and stuff like that. And I don't really feel like that's a great thing to have. So, you know, whether their opinions are good or not, it's a part of being an American. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support, though.
Oh, yes. This bot right here just said, let's see. It retracted its first message. Coward. Let's see here. Second message it sent in. Oh, wait a minute. It retracted both of its messages. What happened, bot? I was going to respond to your message.
The bot's getting
Yeah,
cold
really.
feet.
But it basically just said that it thinks that their war in Ukraine is like a vacation. So I said, oh, the Russians murder people on vacation? Is that how it goes? And now he retracted everything. So maybe that made him have a come to Jesus meeting. I doubt it, but
Yeah,
that's wishful thinking.
Anyways, we're on to the next one now.
All right. So the bot will probably be back in a second, I have a feeling. There it is. We'll see. Oh, gosh. Okay, I'm not even going to respond to that. Bye-bye, bot. Get lost. Up next, we have a $10 super chat from Avari Mandubratis once again, who says, has there been evidence that individual Russian generals are attempting to learn from their mistakes and improve their tactics? Do you think Ukrainian eyes are upon them?
No. They're not learning at all. If anything, we've seen that every once in a while they'll pull out a tactic that they've had in their sleeve the entire time. It's just that there's no way for their soldiers to really implement them unless they get the cream of the crop of their forces to execute the operation. So we haven't seen any of them learning or adapting at all, to say the least, about their situation. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment the best we can, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $7 super chat from Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin, who says, sorry I'm late. I ain't got an intelligent question, so one from the chat, please.
Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin. It's got to be one of the most ill-informed. I'm just kidding. He always says he always says that. And I don't know why, because you're a pretty smart guy. But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support, and we will get a question from the chat. And so with that, what do we got?
And the question from the chat goes to Classified Veteran, who says, since Putin ranted on Russian state TV, is there a clip of that with subtitles? Just a thought.
There's a can you reread that one again real quick?
Since Putin ranted on Russian state TV, is there a clip of that with subtitles? Just a thought.
A clip of that with subtitles. I don't think there is, unfortunately. So I hope that answers the question. That was kind of brief, but I don't think there is one. And with that, we're about to be moving on to the next one. Also, Psyop says, why do you hate Teddy? I don't hate Teddy. I love Teddy. Teddy is my favorite president out of everyone. Like, I think he was the best. Also, I really respected him for just saying, hey, you know, like, I've done my thing. Vote for this guy. And then he just left. And then he came back and he was like, this guy actually sucked. Vote for me again. And then the Republicans were like, we're not backing you. So he's like, all right, I'll make my own party then. And then he split the ticket. Then Woodrow Wilson got in. You know, you can have your own opinions about him. And then he had a stroke while he was president. No one knows that, Matthew. Do you know that Woodrow Wilson actually had a stroke in 1917? Well, not 1917. I think it was after 1917. But he had a stroke that pretty much debilitated him to being an invalid. And his wife was the one actually running the country. And everyone just thought Wilson had become a recluse.
I actually did know that. It's quite similar to a more recent one.
Anyways, we're not talking about... I didn't hear anything. Anyways, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $7 super chat from Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin once again, who says, let's see. So he says, Australian white settlers asked a native what they could call that hopping animal. Aboriginal answered kangaroo, which actually means F it if I know. That's how kangaroo got its name.
Interesting. That's actually interesting. I didn't know that. And so if
I
that's
definitely
true,
didn't know that.
If that's true, I thank you so much for the support, Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin and sharing that with us, because that's actually pretty cool. And so with that, believe it or not, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Uber Khan, who says, don't tell anybody this, but Texas and Oklahoma stink. Air Force for the win.
Oh, but thank you so much for the support. You now started a war with both the Texans and the Oklahomans. Good job, man. And also, the Air Force for the win. I think my friend in the Space Force would disagree. He, for some reason, does not like the Air Force at all. And I don't know why. I'll have to ask him about that a little bit more. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support. And so I was saying I can't sleep with it while people are slandering Teddy. I'm not slandering him. I love him. He's my favorite president. Like, I think Great White Fleet was the coolest thing. It looked good too. Here's a picture of the Great White Fleet. There was one of the ships in the Great White Fleet. It was a super cool fleet. Look at this. This is an Iowa-class battleship. If it was painted up like the Great White Fleet. There is a painting of the Great White Fleet. There is another ship in the Great White Fleet. The battleship Minnesota. A landlocked state. Let's see, what else?
That's very white.
Yes, it is very white, and it's very great. Like a Great White Fleet. Look at that. It's impressive.
Oh, wow, it's wide, too. Very wide.
Yeah, man, those things were chonky. Chonky. And believe it or not, by the time this thing set sail, it was a in-fashion fleet. By the time it came back to the United States, it was an obsolete fleet.
You're kidding.
Yeah, because the Dreadnought was actually launched during this circumnavigation of the globe by the Great White Fleet. So when it left port, it was like, oh, these are up-to-date ships. By the time we got back to the United States with the Dreadnought in the water in the British Navy, the U.S. was like, every single ship we have now is obsolete. We have to make new ones. Yeah, pretty crazy story, actually. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Bilbo Jenkins, who said, it's too bad you can't buy a voodoo globe so that you can make Earth spin real fast and freak everybody out.
Yeah. I don't know where to go with that, but yeah, sure, yeah. So with that, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again. And we'll see about making the world turn a little faster.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from HerpDerpNV, who says, if caught and brought before the Hague court, the Wagner Group owner, Yevgeny Prigozhin, should get the same treatment that Kenneth Pinyan got in 2005.
Maybe so. That's an interesting idea. And I would have to say, I would agree. And so that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. And real quick. There we go. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Rocco, World Domination, who says, I always have your stream playing on one screen while I work on my castle in Minecraft on the other screen. Thanks for your daily report, and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. Also interesting here to play Minecraft. I too have played Minecraft before, and during my free time, I actually built the Pantheon, full scale. Like, it was 1-to-1 full scale. Every single block is a meter. So it's actually really impressive. It's really neat. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and really cool to hear that you played Minecraft while watching this stream. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again. And Matthew's chomping at the bits over there.
Yes. Yes, I love Minecraft. I used to play it a whole bunch when I was a lot younger. But up next, we have a $3 super chat from Duchess of Dub, who says, will Russian leader use nuclear if backed into corner?
Maybe. We don't really know yet because he's been backed into a lot of corners at this point. He's never used them, so we don't really know if the final corner will be the one he uses it on. So with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have another super chat from Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin, who this time puts in a $3 donation. And says, just before you were wondering about Australian names, laughing face, hysterical laughing face, and more of them.
But thank you so much for the support. Putin will hang in the middle of Kremlin. And that is also why he shared the kangaroo thing with us, Matthew, because we were like, what are up with these Australian names? Like, what the hell are these towns? But with that,
I gotta admit, it started off like a little strange, like I wasn't sure where it was going, but I see now where it was going.
Yes, it was. And also, let's go back down here. Oi, mate, where you live? I live in Dubbo, mate. Or Ballymore.
Have you seen that the guy on YouTube, or there's two guys called Pete and Boss?
No, I haven't actually.
They're like, I think they're Australian or British or something like that, but they're like, I guess they're like 70 years old and they're like rapping.
I've never seen this, man. I'm interested though.
They've got bars.
They're dropping bars and eating.
Yeah,
cars?
they've got bars. Yeah, they really do. Like, it's crazy. Like, they've really got that stuff, no cap.
Man, and eating the cars?
The hell? What you talking about?
Like, I said they were dropping bars and eating cars, and you said, yeah, they're doing it all. And I was like, they're eating cars? I was like, really? I was like, that's a little outlandish, I'd have to say, but thank you for sharing that with us, Matthew. Thank you. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dupper Bob and Dubsy Dabster. We also have one from Not For One, But For All, Ukraine, who says, Igor. So thank you all. Yes.
Yeah.
And thank you three all very much for that support. And that is very generous of you all, and we thank you very much. And for our last one, while I just screwed up the spreadsheet tremendously bad, this last one is from Raphael Schneeves, who puts in a $2 donation and says, will you invite Laser Pig to day 365 stream?
Laser Pig? Well, you're asking about the Laser Pig? I mean, I've never even considered that. Let me go check real quick. I don't think Matthew knows who Laser Pig is. Laser Pig's pretty funny.
Well, I do not.
Let's see here. Laser Pig. You know, Laser Pig, he's been doing pretty good for himself lately. I watched some of his videos. They're pretty good. And maybe, I don't know. I mean, like, maybe. I've never actually considered Laser Pig, but I have watched his videos. I like his videos. I think they're pretty funny. And so with that, maybe. I can't really answer that question surely right now, but maybe. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for asking an interesting question right there.
Indeed. And also, that rounds out our super chat. So thank you to everyone who has contributed to the channel tonight for supporting the channel and helping to keep us running. And it looks like Sobs is very interested in Laser Pig. So let's see. We're moving on to our live chat questions. And first up, of course, we have our Morse code decoders. We have Rumpel Stilchin, Cife, Mark Hodges, and JP's RCs. They say the Morse code says Russians takes Soledar and immediately make it a grave for themselves.
You know, did get that correct. It is a grave for them now. If you haven't noticed, a lot of them got buried there under the rubble of the houses that the Ukrainians blew up right on top of them. And so with that, I hope that does address that, and thank you all for deciphering that Morse code message every single night, forever and ever and ever. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you all for doing that.
And up next from the live chat, we have a question from Dale Alaticus, who says, were the orcs supposed to leave the port at the end of the 20 years for Ukraine giving up their nukes?
No, they weren't. They were going to be there forever and ever and ever. They had pretty much permanent port access rights as long as the Ukrainians were pro-Russian. So I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one we have is from Portstan, who says, what are the chances of Prigozhin overthrowing Putin?
Somewhat low, in my opinion. I don't really think he's on up there. He's one of those guys that are probably in the easy window fall distance. And so with that, I hope that answers that question, in my opinion, of course. And we're on to the next one.
The next one we have is from Aaron Walters, who says, did you know the cross on the vehicles, it's for offensive actions?
I didn't know that. I thought that it was just an identifier for Ukrainian vehicles as a whole now. But that is pretty interesting here. It's just for offensives only. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you for sharing that.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Bilbo Jenkins, who says, are you guys showing whatever explosion in Soledar that CNN is talking about?
We don't know about that particular explosion. We have heard about one that's killed supposedly 100 Russian soldiers in a single hit, but we haven't been able to get any confirmation on that video picture-wise on our end to be able to show and talk about. But with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And we're now going to be taking 2 more questions from the live chat and rounding out tonight's stream. And so with that, on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Saswai90, who says, the Russians talk as if they're ready to go for another year or 2, but there's no way they can sustain that for that long, can they?
No, there really is no way that we can see right now unless they start getting foreign support and sanctions start getting lessened. There really is no way for them to keep this whole thing going because they've already started to run out of supplies now, and we're at the end of nearly a year, and they're almost out of supplies at the end of 1 year. So the idea of it going on 2 years is highly unlikely because they can hardly survive 1. So I don't think they will be able to last the course, but they will certainly try. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And now it's time for us to get on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person that threw in the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and that viewer is going to be WB. who could be the Warner Brothers, but we don't know. Enforcer, if this war becomes a decade-long or more war, do you think Putin will nuke the world once he's on his deathbed?
I don't think so. I think he'll probably just die. But I don't know. I mean, maybe, maybe not. But perhaps. And so with that, I hope that does address the question the best we can. And thank you, everyone, so much once again for watching. If y'all did enjoy, make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit the like button, make sure to do all those things. Because, of course, we run this stream every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine, except for Mondays. And so with that, good night, take care, good luck, and I'll see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Take care, and good night.
Love Ukraine.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького